welcome to the Beaufort County Council Caucus meeting. I'd like Mr. Rodman to bang the gavel in just a second. Before I ask him to do that, I'll just say we're present in the room, Mr. Rodman, Mr. Howard, Mr. Cunningham, Miss Howard, I'm sorry, Mr. Cunningham, Mr. Dawson, Mr. Lawson, and remote we have Paul Somerville and Brian Flewelling. So I'm going to ask, I am remote, so I'm going to ask Stu Rodman to bang the gavel and do the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Stu, you got it. All right. Thank you, Stu. And I'd like to say that we've issued a public notification that this meeting has been posted and distributed in compliance with South Carolina Freedom of Information Act. I need a motion for the approval of minutes.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Mr. Flewelling makes the motion. Do I have a second?
Move approval of the minutes. I move approval of the minutes, Mr. Chairman.
That was Mr. Rodman seconding the motion.
Okay, thank you, Stu. And without objection, the agenda will be approved. Are there any objections? Hearing none, the agenda is approved, and that moves us to item number 6, which is a discussion by council members of the agenda and any other matters that that council members may want to discuss. I believe we're going to want to discuss at least 2 items that I know of, and one is item number 1 on the council agenda. Let me see what that is. On the consent agenda, which is the 3rd reading of an ordinance to allocate 2018 1-cent sales tax additional revenue to the sidewalks and multi-use pathways programs. I think there was Stu, you wanted to make a comment on that? Can you hear me, Stu?
I'm having trouble hearing you, Paul. I don't know if you can get closer to the mic.
Yeah, I have a feeling that there's an internet connection problem here. Can you hear me okay now?
Now I can, yes.
Okay, that's fine. We've approved the agenda without objection, and now we're in approval of the agenda, discussion of the agenda itself, review the agenda, and then council members' comments. And I just said that I believe 2 items that we're going to want to discuss that I'm aware of is item number 1 on the consent agenda, which has to do with the allocation of additional 1-cent penny sales tax funds to the multi-use pathway program. I think you want to make a comment on that. And the second thing that we're going to want to talk about is the item number 17 on the agenda, which is the acceptance of the Transportation Advisory Committee recommendations. And I think we're particularly going to want to talk about whether we want to do a referendum in 22, 23, or 24. So, Stu, you want to go ahead and
Yeah, let me speak to the first item, which is the allocation of the money left over from the referendum. And as you know, we have the better part of about 16 million that was left over, and we're at third reading, and the proposal is to allocate it all to trails. And I thought it was worth just a brief discussion. If everybody still wants to go that way, I don't have a problem, and I'll vote for it. But it does seem to me that one of the problems we've had is that it's taken a long time to get around to spending the money from 4 years ago. And that we have some needs, potential needs, and the Ladies Island project, which I understand now is a 60 million instead of a 30 million project, and we know that we're going to have some needs for the 278. And I was an early proponent of the fact that we ought to do the trails, because there was 10 million on the ballot, and then when we first woke up to the fact that it wouldn't support that, we had 20 million was the number that was put out there. So my sense is, and it's going to take quite some time to do all those, my sense is that we probably ought to approve 20 million, another 10, and keep our powder dry with for some of the other things that may need doing coming off the referendum, and in keeping with the spirit of the referendum. But if I'm the only one that feels that way, then end of discussion. Anybody else share that concern? Okay.
Let me chime in if I may. Stu?
Yes, Joe.
Pardon me?
Yes, of course.
You've been advocating from the very start of taking some of this surplus monies and spending it or saving it for other items rather than allocating it all to the pathways. And I said from the very start that in the 2018 referendum, we advertised 24 projects, and there was only $10 million allocated to those 24 projects. And so as of today, there's only been a couple of the projects done. Of the 24, we still don't have enough to get it all done. And I will tell you, the people who these sidewalks, the community that these sidewalks are actually allocated for, those folks are highly upset over the fact that we presented to them 24 projects saying that the referendum was going to cover it, only to find out that it didn't. And so now they feel as if they've been shafted. They feel as if they can't trust us. And I will tell you, Stu, as I've told council in the beginning when we started this discussion for the surplus money, if we don't cover those 24 projects from the 2018 referendum, we stand a very slim chance, if any, of passing the next referendum. And so I would advise us to let's stay the course and allocate the 15 million that surplus that we have on hand. Let's allocate that to ensure that we get all 24 of the projects, sidewalk projects done.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman? Mr. Chairman? You're not on speaker, Paul, but I assume you're coming on.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, I was on mute.
It's okay. When I say I echo Gerald, it's not reverb coming through the computer system. It's really, I absolutely believe exactly what he said. And thank you, Gerald, for voicing that.
Yeah, thank you, Gerald. I don't see any real support on council to change the allocation. So unless there's some council members that have not spoken up, I think we're fine. We're going to proceed as indicated in the resolution. Yes, sir.
Yeah, Paul, regarding the agenda, you talked about the item regarding using the excess 2018 sales tax funds for sidewalks as item number 1 on the consent agenda. That's not the agenda I've got. I show
Well-
that item as number 19 on the regular agenda.
Well, you know what? I've got on my version of it has it on the consent agenda, but it should be on the regular agenda. So let's just call it item 19. The version that I have does have it on the consent agenda, but it
Councilmember
absolutely
Somerville.
should not be on the consent agenda. So it's 19.
Right. I want to make it clear that the consent agenda or the agenda that we talked about was for the caucus, and I don't believe there are any changes to that. The
Sounds good.
agenda that we approved already. Yeah.
Right. Thank you for pointing that out. So as far as I know, we don't need to discuss this anymore. Ms. Stu made his point. I don't see any support for changing the allocation to anything other than pathways. So the next item that I know we need to talk about is this item 17 on the agenda. Adopting the recommendation from the Transportation Advisory Committee. You remember when Dean Moss made his presentation, he mentioned to us that there was a split decision on the committee as to when it should be done. And if I remember correctly, he said the split was between 22 and 24. Now, if somebody remembers it differently, I'll speak up. But we didn't talk about 23, and I know that initially there was some concern about whether it was even legal to put it on in 23, but we haven't had the legal take a look at it, and I'm now convinced, legal's convinced that it is legal. So our discussion is really going to be about 22, 23, and 24. So anybody wants to start weighing in on that, because we're going to have to talk about it for sure when we get to council. But I thought this would be a good time to kind of kick it around and see what the sense of the body is.
How
come
I want to point out that I believe council has resolved, and it's not an ordinance, but we've resolved in the past not to have countywide or elections regarding countywide referenda during off-cycle years. When there is no county official being voted on, we've said that we don't want to have a resolution. Now, I agree that that's not binding by law. There's no reason why we can't do it, except that we can be absolutely sure that only a segment of the population will show up. Even when it's just countywide, just county elections for county council and for auditor, treasurer, and sheriff, et cetera, we really don't get everybody showing up to the polls as we do during a presidential election and a U.S. or a South Carolina senator election. And so, I would say 23 is a bad idea for that very reason, and for no other reason, that it doesn't really give us a real overview of what the constituents, what our citizens think about an issue. Regarding the rest of it, I intend to vote no, just because I think it will fail, and I don't want the county to have a track record of failures on sales tax referenda questions. And so that's all I have to say on the matter.
Thank you, Brian. Anybody else want to weigh in on this? I've got some thoughts, but I'll hold mine until anybody else on council wants to weigh in on this. Here's my concern. If we do it in 22, it'll be rushed. I'm not saying it can't be done, but it'll be a rush. And if we do it in 24, it seems to me it's so far out in the future that we'd almost have to reconvene the Transportation Advisory Committee, because that would be more than 2 years down the road. And a lot of things can change in 2 years. I'm not sure we'd have to reconvene the TAC, but I think it's very possible, if not likely, that we'd have to reconvene. So it kind of puts us in a box. And the box is, if you do it in 22, you rush. You do it in 23, you run into the objections about the off-year election. By the way, the legality of it is, as it's explained to me, even though none of us are elected on the off years, the city council people are elected on off years. So it does count as a general election. And then, of course, 24 is way out there. So, Logan, did I see your hand up? Logan?
I'll be brief. If we're going to get the support of the people,
no matter when we decide to put this on, I think we need to be honest as a council. We put ourselves in this hole because we should have been talking about this last summer and not lost or the change of government. That's the referendum we should have been pushing from day one. That failed miserably. Over 77% voted no for a reason, and now we put ourselves in that hole because we want to go down that. So if you want to have the voice of the people, your time is either 2022 or 2024. We tried to put it in an off election, and we saw how that happened. I think we need to be upfront and honest with the people if we want to get anything accomplished at all. And then, don't get me wrong, I have a lot of issues with this to begin with, what got presented to us, and we'll talk about that over the next couple of weeks. But I do think step one is if we want the support, we have to admit that we messed up as a council, all 11 of us, on that. We didn't do a good job putting forward the necessity of this project instead of the other projects that we went on record saying we did for the municipalities. So we dropped the ball as a council. I'll be the first to say that, and I think we need to, pick that up and see what we can get done for 2022. Because if not, I'm with Mr. Fwelling. 2024 is our next option. Where I don't believe putting it in an off election on 2023. I don't think that's the right way to go, and I don't think that sends the right message. And last year shows that.
Thank you, Logan.
Mr. Chairman?
I can make an argument against 22,
23 and 24. I can also make an argument for them, I guess. Who else wants to weigh in on this? Thank you, Logan.
Mr. Chairman, we should not do an off year on 2023. I don't think that's going to work, and I would hate to see such a huge failure like we had with the loss, and I wouldn't want to see it in 2023. Thank you.
Thank you, Alice. I see Mr. Glover's joined us. Welcome, sir. Did you have your hand up? Or are you just saying hello?
I can't. Sure, thank you. I really can't hear you too well, Paul, and I really didn't realize that you were.
A little closer. I'm sorry about that.
No, that's all right.
Is that better?
We are talking about the referendum that the task force brought to us last at the public facility meeting?
Yes.
Okay. And is the question on the board whether we should move forward with the 2022 referendum or the 2024? Is that the question that's on the floor?
Well,
Okay.
exactly.
We're
just discussing it, but yeah.
Sure. Yeah, okay. Let me just weigh in on my side. I think that the future, we can never tell what's going to happen. So when I was selling insurance, I was told that you buy insurance when you need it because you can't really determine what's going to happen down the road. So I believe right now that the staff has brought us a $1 billion project plan for 10 years, and they have worked with a citizen group that has brought us a $700 million funding project. And the only question we have right now is not that we don't need that to do it, is when do we do it? I am of the belief that now is the time to do the project, to do the referendum. There are a lot of people I've talked to, and they feel that if they're going to see something done, we need to move forward because they want to see it in their lifetime. So that's where I stand at this time. I think we should move forward with this for the 2022 and let the chip fall where they may. I believe that we can get a lot of support for this because of the way it's packaged, and I think we should move forward with it. That's my position. Thank you.
Thank you. We have several people there we haven't heard from. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My inclination is that this should be a 2024 item if we really are going to get the support of the people and the voice of the people. I think where we're sitting right now, we don't have a whole lot of success behind us with the bridge and with the lost referendum that we just failed miserably at, I wouldn't support a 2022 referendum. I wouldn't support a 2023 referendum. Thank you.
But you would support a 2024 maybe?
Yes, I would. 2024.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate your input on that. We haven't heard from Mark, we haven't heard from Gerald, we haven't heard from Stu on this, I don't think.
I'll go next. I actually agree with York. I mean, now's the time. If we're going to put it off for 2.5 more years, it'll be a completely different ask than what we're asking for right now. I think we have intelligent voters. I think they understand what we need, and I'd rather have us go ahead and if it fails, but let the voters decide.
Appreciate that. Thank you very much, Mark. Gerald, you haven't weighed in on this. Can we hear from you on this?
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Yeah, I think it'd be ill-advised for us to move forward with this referendum now. I advocated from the very beginning that we should put this off to 2024. However, at that time, I thought I was the only one. And a good colleague of mine said, well, being that you don't support it, do you support the projects that's going to come from it? And yes, I do. I support the projects. I just think that the timing is not the right time to do it, and I think we stand a better chance of getting more citizen support for the referendum if we do it in 2024 rather than 23 or 22.
Stu, you haven't weighed in on this yet.
Thank you, Paul. There's two things occur to me. One is we obviously have a significant need for the projects that are on there. We don't have any of them that are immediately pressing, but at long term, we need it from the funding standpoint. I kind of come down that this year would be extremely tough when you look at what's happening nationally with inflation and people struggling. I just think it's extremely, extremely difficult to pass one this particular year. So I would be in favor of moving it out to whether it's 23 or 24, I don't care. But if we do that, I think we need to congratulate the committee for having done a good job and for Jared for having led that. So I guess I would be in favor of not doing it in 22.
Thank you, Stu. Well, everybody heard the same thing, and it sounds like there's not enough support for a 23 or 22 22 date. Yes, sir, Brian, you want to comment?
Yeah, you know, one of the things that occurs to me as I'm listening to everybody talk is we're suggesting that in 2024, to hold the referendum in 2024, we'd have to, because of the passage of time, 2.5 years, the whole list of projects would be potentially different, or at least part of the list of projects would be different. And you know, I think that's a good reason to vote no on the referendum in itself, on its own face, because we're suggesting that we're doing a 10-year, we have a 10-year reach on this, that we're obligating the county for 10 years, and it will solve our problems for 10 years. And yet, we're admitting in our arguments that we don't know what's even going to happen in 2.5 years. So we're obligating really all the money we're going to get for sales tax referenda. We're referendaing just this list that we know about today. We're kind of writing off any chance of having this in the future, really within the lifetime of several of the people in the room. I know how old some of you are. There's at least some of us won't be on county council. So it's kind of unfair to lock the county in on a list of projects that, quite frankly, may be obsolete by the time it comes ready to start construction on them, or they may not be our highest priority in 7 years or 5 years or whenever construction starts. So I would vote no based on the merits, on those merits right now. And that's not to say that the projects listed aren't important or that they're not necessary today. You know, if we had magic wands and a money press, we would do all of them today, I'm sure. But you know, I think it kind kind of defeats the purpose of having periodic referenda on these kinds of questions.
If reading this correctly, I'm trying to figure out the best way for us to approach this thing when it comes to council. As it's written, it says we're approving a resolution, or the resolution, to adopt all recommendations as presented by the Transportation Advisory Committee. My recollection is, I don't have the recommendations in front of me, but the recommendation was for 2022. Am I correct about that? Or was it left blank, that we would fill in the blanks? Is Kurt or Tom on this call?
There's two items on the agenda tonight that relate to this. The first item is a resolution for the council to consider adopting in its entirety the recommendations of the Transportation Advisory Committee, what we commonly have come to refer to as an acronym of TAC. We can continue to work with TAC over the course of the next several months or a couple of years to refine the project list if you all elect not to do that. The second item on the agenda tonight that you all will be dealing with will be an ordinance to give first reading to an ordinance to do the referendum in 2022. So based on the discussion tonight, I'm not sure if you all want to take that item up. As a county administrator, two of your council members are out of the country right now. You might want to, whatever we do, I think should be an opportunity for all council members to be able to weigh in on the vote this evening if there's some chance it would be defeated. So you might want to table that for a month and to give Councilmember McEllen and Councilmember Passman a chance to be back in town so that they could have their input on that, since we did this as a collaborative effort from the council appointing members to the TAC, but that's just a consideration that I would recommend that you consider as county administrator. So.
Thank you, Mr. Administrator. That's probably some sage advice. Logan, did I see your hand there?
Yeah, two questions. Question one, are you saying that number 20 is saying that we would keep that transportation committee intact?
It is not saying that. You could keep them intact and ask them to continue to do work to come up with more detailed project lists, more refinements on priority of schedule, priority of projects, and things like that while we're waiting to do the referendum. You do not have to do that. You do not have to adopt the resolution except in their recommendations. You can modify the recommendations. If you want to do a smaller project in 2022, a smaller referendum, you certainly have the right to do that as well.
Okay. And then the second thing, to the rest of the people that are here today, if somebody up here does decide to postpone that vote, I hope that we can at least leave it on the agenda for now to have the discussion for the people that are tuning in, showed up today specifically for this item, just because it is a big one. There's a lot of people that are interested in that. So,
yeah,
saying I wouldn't be opposed, just saying I think to have those conversations now in public is healthy.
Yeah, I think that's a good statement. I think you all should continue to leave it on the agenda to have the discussion, to have the public comment, to have a dialogue during the council meeting so that individuals can understand where everyone is at this point on the issue, and then you can decide after you have that discussion whether or not you want to table it to be able to allow council members McEllen and Councilmember Passman to be back in town.
I have a question. So we would take off, we could have the discussion by leaving number 20 on and then perhaps take off number 18, which is the first reading of the ordinance?
That's correct.
Okay.
But you don't have to.
We'll definitely talk about it, Logan, so we're not going to dismiss it. Anybody else, any other topics that anybody else wants to talk about?
Yeah,
while we're here?
Vice Chairman Somerville, Tom Cavaney wants to weigh in.
Okay. Tom, you have the floor.
Sure. Councilman Somerville, if you want to take the two issues in the order in which Eric just referred to them, then at the beginning of the meeting, you're going to need to make a motion to move number 20 up ahead of number 18, okay?
Okay. When we get to council in about 30 minutes, I'll need a motion to move number 20 up to number 18. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah,
Who,
just-
who,
yeah.
who wants to make that motion?
Let me just make
Logan,
one.
you were talking
let-
about it, you want to do it? You're on mute, Logan.
He's asking you if you want to make the motion to amend the agenda.
I mean, I'm willing to move it up for you and move 20 to 18 and 18 to 19, then 19 to 20, and just do that in that order. But as of right now, I wouldn't be willing to remove it from the vote until we have our conversations.
Oh, no, right, we're going to talk about it, it's just.
Yeah, we'd just be changing the order.
That's fine.
Misunderstood Tom. We're not
Yeah, I have no
taking
problem
it
making
off.
that motion to change the order. Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, appreciate that. You can get language from Tom during the next 30 minutes. We're gonna probably end the caucus early anyway. Anybody else have anything they want to bring up? If not, and we'll
Paul, just a
Yeah.
question for you, because we were having trouble hearing you. Did you weigh in on what your opinion was between 22 and 23?
No, what I said was that I can make an argument against any 24, 23, or 22. I think it's at the end we're just going to have to decide which one a majority of us wants. And one other thing I'll say is, I hope that whatever we decide is unanimous, because if we have a split decision coming out of this council, I can only speculate on what that looks like to the public. When we ask them to pass it, we couldn't even agree among ourselves on when it should be done. So hopefully, after we've hashed this around, we'll realize the importance of unanimity and be able to come forward with one voice, 11 of us, to do it on whatever date we pick. Yeah, I support a particular date.
If I may,
Anybody else?
if I may, Councilman Somerville, it's very hard to hear what's going on. So I'm not sure if I heard Councilman Cunningham ask a question along the following, and that is, if we move 20 above 18, whether or not that requires you to amend the agenda. I don't believe it requires you to amend the agenda because it's on the agenda. You don't have to have a 2/3 vote in order to move it around. It's on there. I think it would just be an agreement among council or not an agreement among council, okay?
Okay.
Thank you very much, Tom, for that clarification. Anybody else? We have 30 minutes if you want to talk about anything else. If not, we'll disband until 6 o'clock.
I would recommend that we pause for 30 minutes so that we can try to get the audio better before 6 o'clock. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
See you at 6, folks.
Can the public? Let me call this meeting to order. It's Beaufort County Council. This is Monday, May the 23rd. And Paul Somerville, who will be chairing the meeting, is out of town. So, Paul, you had a couple comments as we get started before I do the pledge and the invocation.
I can't, otherwise.
And I will, Paul. You can, Sarah can be in contact with you, and if we get the speakers up and running, then we'll make that transition. Thank you. If you would rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the
republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Remain standing, please, and if you would bow with me in prayer. Heavenly Father, we acknowledge the beauty of this day that you've made and the beautiful part of your earth that we live in. These are difficult times, Lord. We know on an international basis the situation in the Ukraine, and we ask that that would come to a quick and a good solution. We know that we're struggling in difficult economic times, and that's hurting many of our people. So as we deliberate tonight, we just ask your guidance that our discussions and our decisions will be for the good of the people and pleasing to you, and we ask this all in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay, Sarah, do we have the proper notification and satisfaction of FOIA requirements?
Yes, sir, we do.
Okay, thank you. I'm looking for an approval of the agenda, and as we do that, we talked about it in caucus, and unless there's an objection, we want to move item number 20 up ahead of item number 18. It's a more logical sequence. Both of them are related to the potential transportation sales tax. So, looking for a approval of the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda with that change.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Okay, is there any objection? Seeing none, it stands approved without objection. We need approval of the minutes, and I don't actually have the date of those minutes. April 11th. So we need a motion for consideration of approval of the meeting minutes from April 11th.
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Gerald. Second?
I'll second the motion.
Alice? Any comments or changes to the minutes? Any objections? Seeing none, the minutes stand approved April 11th without objection. Mr. Greenway, the administrator's report, we always look forward to that.
Yeah, so first of all, let me apologize to both the in-person council and the council online. We are still, obviously, we're very new into this mobile meeting rotation that we have, so we're still trying to get the appropriate resources purchased and implemented. Also want to apologize to those that are in attendance tonight that may not be able to hear very well. Whenever you're outside of your normal environment, things can happen, and that's certainly what we're dealing with this evening. So I do apologize for that, and we will try to do our best to make sure that we do not have this occur again once we come back to this facility. As I customarily do, I recognize employees, and I'm going to continue with that this evening. Our first employee this evening was unable to join us, but they are on, we have a picture of her. She works in our risk management department. Her name is Tanya Brown. She is our insurance and claims coordinator with the county. She's been with us about 4 years, November 26, 2018 to today. She has a lot of job duties, of course, being an insurance and claims coordinator. She, of course, helps with our insurance claims, helps us get pricing on insurance. She analyzes and processes and files claims for us, and she also has been cross-trained to work in our workers' compensation claims area as well. Something unique about Tanya that I always share, that she wanted to share publicly, is that Tanya never has to purchase things like soap or body products because she makes those items using natural ingredients at her home. So a very creative individual there. Let's give Tanya Brown a round of applause, please. Rob Lewis, are you coming up here or are you staying back there? So this is Rob Lewis. You guys know Rob. He works in our broadcast services department. He's a broadcast specialist is his correct title. He's been with us for 13 years, and he has over 20 years of production experience. He directs and produces content for the county channel. He shoots and edits the Coastal Kingdom, as you all know, has won a few Emmy Awards and has been nominated for another one this time around. Great programming there. He produces broadcasts such as council meetings and community events. As I said, something unique about Rob is that he created the Emmy Award-winning program along with Tony Mills, known as Coastal Kingdom, that airs on the county channel and statewide on South Carolina ETV. He also likes producing short films and has a telly for videography and cinematography. Man, that was pretty good for a southern accent. I need to get those big words out. Rob is married to Beth Lewis, a very creative individual as well, who works for the town of Bluffton as well in the stormwater department. And they have two beautiful children, who are Benjamin 10 and Maddie 7. And I can't let Rob go without mentioning something that he shares with a few of our council members, is that he also uses amazing smell good hair products. So Councilmember Herbershaw, Councilmember Cunningham, you all have something in common with Mr. Lewis here. So anyway, thank you, Rob. Let's give Rob a round of applause, please. Oh, his family's here? Oh, who's your family, Rob? Will y'all stand up back there, please? I'm sorry. Thank you all. That's the better half of the Lewis family. You want to say your name? No, I'm okay. Thank you. Appreciate it. Our final employee tonight is Mr. Scott Hansen. Come on up, Scott. Scott works in our IT department. He's an IT analyst. He's been with the county for 23 years. He does support of countywide software applications. Those of us that work at the county know Scott as the Munis guy. He handles all the Munis issues. We either love him when it's working well or we don't when it's not. He has a pretty tough job. And he's also written several applications that are still being used by the county, like our tax sale application. So something unique about Scott here is that he was a combat photographer in the U.S. Marine Corps. So you've seen some things, I would imagine. So
Fortunately, no.
Oh, no? Okay, well,
No,
that's good. That's good.
yeah.
That's good. That's good. You want to say a few words?
Just thank you.
Thank you. All right, let's give Scott a round of applause. Two other things I need to mention tonight are two achievements. We've received the Achievement Award from NACO in 2022 for the Beaufort County Southern Low Country Stormwater Design Manual that was submitted by Katie Herrera in our Stormwater Department. And also, we received a 2022 NACO Achievement Award for the implementation of the collection center decal system that reduced our external waste that you all received a lot of comments about, had a lot of questions about, but we have been recognized for that as well. That was submitted by Cindy Carter. Angel Marskankowski is here as a representative for solid waste. Angel, if you'll stand up. She does a lot of good work for us in solid waste and recycling and with the decal system. Many of you know her by name. You may not have ever put a face with her because people will probably call you and say, hey, Angel said I couldn't have my decal, so I didn't qualify. So she's the one that does all that research. So, and then also Katie Herrera, is she here? Oh yeah, hey Katie. Katie there with our stormwater department. Very creative. They're both very creative and talented. Katie is doing a great job in our stormwater department. They both deserve a lot of credit and praise for the work that they do for the county in those two very sensitive environmental areas. So, thank you, Katie. Appreciate it. Let's get in around. And then I just have a few things that I need to go through, 3 more items. So one of the things that you will notice with the budget tonight is an amendment that we've been allowed to process as a result of additional money in the budget that came to our attention in the finance department. Many of you are aware that we have a lot of capital needs as it relates to buildings and facilities. You get a lot of complaints about the condition of wrecked facilities and other buildings, the administration building, the lack of facilities around the county. We're getting ready to undertake, if you all proceed on with the budget, we're getting ready to undertake major building projects in this upcoming budget, and we also have to implement the capital facilities master plan as well over the course of the next couple of years. Jared Fralix is this ACA for engineering and infrastructure, does an outstanding job, but we're going to burn him out if we don't get him some help. So one of the things I'm proposing tonight for you all to consider is that we hire a capital projects director and create a position called capital projects coordinator that will only deal with capital projects related to building and physical plant facilities. So they would handle all building projects, permitting, manage the projects and all of that, because if we're going to continue with transportation issues related to the ferry that we've got to solve, related to the airport expansion, related to transportation, then Jared is going to be best suited and most effective and most efficient in being directly involved in those projects. So that is one thing that you need to consider as we get to that item on the agenda. I'm happy for feedback. I'm happy to discuss and answer any questions about that. Second thing tonight that you all should be aware of, a few months ago, we had a discussion where you all approved $250,000 for the Harriet Tubman Memorial for the church in Beaufort, and I can't remember the name of it now. Councilmember Glover or someone, do y'all remember the Tabernacle Baptist Church? Thank you very much for doing that. There was some question about how we would go about donating that money to the church, and the question was, would we have to create a parcel of land that the church would create and donate it to the county for us to be able to fund that project? I'm happy to say that our legal department did some research. They found a Supreme Court ruling that says that we can make that donation to the church for that particular project without having to go through the subdivision of the property. So we're in the process of completing that funding in accordance with your direction. I just wanted to give you the update that that is going to go ahead and be done, and that funding is going to be sent to the church, and we're working on that currently. There's a lot of things going on this week. Toward the end of last week, I was notified that we had a major issue with the docking at the Sands boat landing, where the tide had elevated the floating dock up off of the connector to land, and it was unsafe. So we went through the process, and I just need to notify you all that I authorized an amount in about $160,000 from ATAX money underneath the boat landing and water access provision to do that repair as an emergency repair, to be able to get that work underway so that we can get that boat dock back open at that landing. It was a very bad safety issue. I saw pictures. I would have shown it to you tonight, but I knew we'd be here so you could see how bad it was. I think Councilmember Howard saw the picture as well. It was pretty bad, so we have already started doing that. I just needed, from a legal standpoint, to notify you all that I've done that purchase in case you all have any concerns or questions about that. Did you?
Well, if I might, Mr. Chairman, can we make sure that that appears as a resolution ordinance expenditure on the next agenda so that we can ratify what Mr. Greenway has done?
Yeah,
I don't doubt the need or the urgency. Just want to make sure it gets done legally.
Yeah, we'll take care of that for you all.
I wanted to thank you for
Appreciate it.
getting
Thank
that done so quickly. The boat landing was in danger of being closed
Yeah,
down
it was,
completely.
yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate that. And then two more items. One is you have folks here tonight to speak about the TCL purchase public hearing of the property near TCL. I just want to let everyone know in the audience and council know that I have scheduled a community meeting for June 2nd at 6 p.m. at the county building in the council chambers. Again, Thursday, June 2nd, 6 p.m. at the county administration building on Rebo in the county council chambers for that community that lives adjacent to these properties and adjacent to TCL, for them to come in and be able to have a dialogue with the county staff and them voice their concerns and let us hear feedback on the purchase of that property. I will state that we have no plans for that property. There have been ideas thrown around. We are not planning to do any type of government subsidized housing with the property. Again, if we do anything with the property, we are going to try to limit that use of those properties to professional folks that have trouble finding housing here in the county, nurses, teachers, professors, anyone else in that level that's having trouble serving the public, but also finding housing in the area. And then the final thing, and I'll be quiet, just so you all know on council, you're happy to contact me anytime, but I am scheduled to be off beginning Wednesday through Memorial Day, so I'll be back to work Tuesday after Memorial Day, beginning Wednesday. So anyway, thank you all. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report.
Denied. Denied.
Well deserved.
Mr. Chairman, is that public, is it on?
Yeah, it's on.
Okay. Is that public meeting on the 2nd, is that open to the, will it be telecast?
We can have the county channel folks there. We hadn't gotten that far yet.
Okay.
But we'll do our best to make sure it's broadcast.
Thank you.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Next item is a proclamation, and Alice, if you do that, I appreciate it.
Yes, I'd be happy to.
We got it? Okay. We have a proclamation that Mr. David Ott worked with our county clerk to do this, and it's well-deserved, and we're so glad that we can do this today for you. Whereas Beaufort County Council would like to recognize Carla Anderson Smith for her services to Beaufort County through her work in helping the Beaufort County Coroner's Office with the interment of 34 cremation remains. And whereas Carla Anderson Smith is the owner of Forest Lawn Cemetery and Anderson Funeral Home. Whereas Carla Anderson Smith has been a licensed funeral director since 1989 and the daughter of the founder of Anderson Funeral Home. And whereas Carla Anderson Smith assisted Coroner David Ott for months with the planning, putting together the proper cremation boxes, assuring each person was identified by name and date of death, and where each cremation is placed. And whereas Carla Anderson Smith's work on the records will make it easier for family members who might come forward to reunite with their loved ones. And whereas on November 18, 2021, Carla Anderson Smith provided a hearse to transport 4 United States veterans to the Beaufort National Cemetery for a full military service, which many citizens attended. And whereas Carla Anderson Smith further provided complete graveside services at Forest Lawn Cemetery, which included tents, chairs, and a podium for guest speakers. And whereas Carla Anderson Smith's work was done voluntarily out of the kindness of her heart without any cost to the citizens of Beaufort County. And whereas Carla Anderson Smith is a true Beaufortonian and is always willing to give her love to others. And now therefore be it resolved by the County Council of Beaufort County, the council hereby wishes to honor Carla Anderson Smith for her kindness, her selfishness, and her resources to lay to rest 34 unclaimed cremations in Beaufort County. Thank you. Would you like to say something? Good.
I'm just all choked up. I really appreciate what you've done and having me here this evening, and of course that's what I do. It was my honor and my privilege to do what we did with the help of Coroner Ott.
Mr. Councilwoman and Councilman, I'd like to thank you for this. It means a lot for Carla to receive this. She very, very instrumental in the interment of these unclaimed bodies, so thank you.
You want the council in the background? Would that be good? Yeah.
Yeah.
Get in there. Get in there.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Alice. That brings us to citizen comments.
Stu, can I make a comment before we do that? Mr.
Sure.
Powell? Yeah, let me just weigh in on that just a little bit. I want to say thank you to Carla for all the work she did and point out that there were 4 veterans in that group in the unclaimed remains, and we had a special ceremony including an honor guard for those, and all of that was thanks to the hard work and research that Carla did to find out exactly who those veterans were and to prepare a final resting place appropriately for them. Thank you, Carla. Thank you, Stu. That's all.
Okay. Paul, you want me to continue, Paul, or?
Yeah, I'm assuming the new speakers are not in yet. Is that correct?
No, apparently not. Okay.
Okay, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Thank you.
That brings us to citizen comment. We ask you to limit that to 3 meetings. We have one now, and we have one at the end of the meeting. This one should be for items that are on the agenda. Some of you also are here to speak for a public hearing for some of the other events or some of the other agenda items. We'll pick those up as we go. But do try to be brief in the interest of time. We have a busy agenda, and we allocate 15 minutes for this. Riley Clark, please come forward.
Hi, thank you. My name is Riley Clark. I am currently an 8th grade science teacher at Robert Smalls International Academy here in Beaufort. And I'm here to advocate for the teachers when you guys get presented the new budget for Beaufort County School District. We are advocating for a raise for teachers to get us from the 53rd ranked starting salary in the state to the 5th starting salary. And the main reason is because when you have teachers in your districts, what you want is you want someone that loves kids, loves their content, and wants to grow the community. And right now, your teachers cannot even be a part of your community. My wife and I moved here a year ago from Kansas City, and we can't afford to have permanent housing. We are renting. We both have second jobs because we would be able to put zero money into savings accounts if we were not working that second job. We would not. We have friends who a roommate moved out and now is looking to move home to Ohio because she cannot afford to live here anymore. And it breaks my heart because I have a team that is almost entirely new to the district, and we've already lost 2 people out of our 8, and we are currently looking at, my wife and I are not looking at having a long-term future here because we simply are not considered a part of the community. We are simply transplants. And unless we can actually afford housing, permanent housing, not renting, if we can afford to live here and afford to raise our kids here, there's no reason for us to stay. And so I advocate for all of these young teachers who are coming into your district to say, we care about you, we want you to be here, and we want you to be here permanently, because kids don't need new teachers every year. I want to be able to say, I taught your dad 20 years ago. I taught your mom, and be a true part of the community that I'm in. And right now, with the way salaries are in this district, your teachers cannot. So I advocate that please approve the budget and continue to approve raises for teachers, because if you want a strong electorate and a strong community, you start with your teachers. So thank you.
Looks like Mike Gurrell, if I'm pronouncing that right.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak here, and first of all, thank you for your service. I know with all of these decisions you have to take, there's some of them are difficult, some easier, but there's always going to be people who disagree or criticize you all for whatever decisions you do take. I don't know very much about public sector at all, have no public sector experience. What I do understand very well is the private sector and markets. And if you look at the situation that we have today with the school districts and the teachers, you first look at the demand side of this. I mean, we are very, very blessed to live in Beaufort County. The quality of life here is fantastic. One of the reasons we chose to live here, our family, we have 3 children in the school district, is because there was a favorable public school district 10 years ago. And I can tell you our experience here has been fantastic, although we do see cracks. Unfortunately, the Northerners, I'm from the North as well, they found us. Cost of living is way more expensive in the Northeast. It's more expensive in the out West. Property taxes are much higher up there. So as you all know, there are a lot of people moving down here, and they're driving prices up on everybody, including our teachers. If you look at the supply of teachers, we're well behind the curve, right? The whole country's behind the curve. That's why we have a teacher shortage. And the reality here is that the private sector is going to adjust. It's going to adjust continuously. You all, unfortunately, have one time a year to take this decision, and you're affecting what's going to happen over a year from now. There are high school students now that are getting ready to go on break. They're going to make more per hour this summer than we're paying our teachers, with 4-year degrees and all the things that our teachers are dealing with when they show up to school every day. But if you're going to go work at a grocery store as a 16, 17-year-old, within a month or two, they're going to bump you to a pay rate that is more than we're paying our teachers. That's why you have the vacancy rates. That's why you have the turnover rates that you have in the school district today. You got to listen to the administrators, what they're saying. This budget proposal, please support it. It's a very modest proposal in the grand scheme of things, and it's absolutely necessary if we're going to stabilize the situation in our school district. Thank you very much.
Mac and Susan Wiggins.
Good afternoon. My name is Mac Wiggins.
Okay.
I've been in Beaufort all my life, been in the reserve and honorable discharge, licensed day minister, do a small landscaping business. But my problem is my wife couldn't make it the other day because she had to work. She worked for the kidney diagnosis place in Port Royal. We have a problem with our drainage. We live at 6 Jenkins, Brother Road, St. Helena. And before Mr. Avalkanaki, I forgot his name, who was working for the county, he would keep the ditches clean, but now it's having a backed up and it's got problems, and we pay taxes, and we need to have the ditches clean, at least the one ditch clean behind the house, and that's the reason why I'm here, to see if y'all can consider that and look into it, because we have had many promises that you were going to do something and nobody never did anything. And also when you're coming up Highway 21, the sidewalk looks so bad in areas, grass all over the place, the road structure, and seem like in the more uppity place is more taken care of. So I'm just thinking that you should at least look into it and consider it, because we are a U.S. citizen, we pay taxes, and that's my concern. That's it. Thank you.
Mr. Wiggins, before you go, can you put down your address so we can check it out with our County Administrator, Osara, just so we can go by? Thank you.
Bernadette Hampton?
Members of Beaufort County Council, thank you and good evening. I am Bernadette Hampton, a 51-year resident of Beaufort County and a product of Beaufort County School District. I speak tonight in support of the school district proposed millage increase. I see public education as an investment in Beaufort County's future, South Carolina's future, the nation's future. I take the concept of investment seriously. As a mathematics teacher, I teach my students the value of investment, the consistent financial investment that increases in value over time. As a longtime Beaufort resident, I've seen the value of investment bear fruit in our own community. Tens of thousands of our friends and neighbors who have made Beaufort County their new home during the past 30 years have seen it too. In 1990, the county's population was a little more than 86,000 people. In 2000, the population has increased by nearly 40% to almost 121,000 people. 12 years ago, our population increased another 34% to more than 160,000 people. And the U.S. Census Bureau estimates that more than 195,000 people live in Beaufort County today, an increase of nearly 227% over 32 years. But our millage, the level of investment that drives growth in our county, has not kept the same pace. For the school year of 1993-94, the millage rate in Beaufort County was 111.4. 30 years later, after 5 property reassessments, our millage rate for the school year of 2022-23 stands at 121.6, and the proposed increase takes it only to 125.6. The proposed millage rate is by no means exorbitant. It is, in fact, lower than the rates that were in place when Beaufort County ranked among the best financed public school systems in the state. In recent years, we've seen the county approve massive new expenditures for improved investment in economic development and transportation, all of which support growth in the county. They have served their purposes well. But at a moment when Beaufort County is trying to attract and retain the very best educators during a severe educator shortage and maintain consistently high quality in our public schools, investment in public education is equally essential to protecting and enhancing Beaufort County's future. It's worth pointing out that no classroom teacher or education support personnel in Beaufort County has become wealthy due to their career in public education, and improving the proposed millage increase will not result in anyone becoming suddenly wealthy in the education profession. But it will help Beaufort County to compensate loyal employees who have devoted their careers to renewing our communities through public education. And it will help us attract and retain the best educators, which is what our students deserve. Understanding that consistent financial investment increases in value over time. I'm thankful for those county councilmen and women of recent decades who saw the need for investment in public schools and who voted to meet those needs. I'm hopeful tonight that educators and students who stand before county councils in the decades to come will have good reason to thank you for approving this year's proposed millage increase. Thank you.
Stu, if you could remind everybody to keep it within the 3 minutes allotted, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Roy Green.
Good evening, County Council. I'm here to talk about the growth. There's a lot of growth in the southern part of Beaufort County, but there's little growth in the northern part. The northern part was made up a lot of farmland. I think if the county would look at trying to purchase some of that land to build affordable housing, it would help balance the growth. and it could help with the teachers, firemen, and all that to have affordable housing. It's a lot of land out there, and if we can expand that growth to balance what's going on throughout the county, that would be much appreciated. That's all I have.
Thank you. Looks like Lavrin Boraski. I apologize if I didn't pronounce that right.
Good evening, council members. My name is Lauren Brasky. I want to start off by saying that I have been fortunate enough to have taught and lived in Beaufort County for 18 years now. I have recently been selected as River Ridge Academy's Teacher of the Year. I have had a great sense of satisfaction in influencing the learning of the children of our county throughout these years, and I am only able to continue teaching with our current salaries due to my dual income household. Currently, the cost of living in Beaufort County is by far the highest in the state of South Carolina. It is too high for teachers to support their families alone on the current pay scale. With the 3% increase, it would rank Beaufort County as number 47 in the state for starting teacher salary. The accepted increase will ensure the quality and integrity of our existing teachers and our new hires, as well as preventing current educator flight risks. Additionally, we have over 700 certified teachers living in the district who have chosen not to teach due to the current salary not matching the cost of living in this county. Prospective residents are doing their homework, and for the benefit of us all, we need to make sure that our schools can succeed and that the students are taught by the best and the brightest certified educators. It would benefit every single person living in the area for the public schools to thrive. It is time to make the right choice and to take care of us, the teachers, and by default, all of the children in this district. We love them. It's why we do this. However, many of us need the additional income to continue to stay financially afloat. Thank you so much for your time.
Mr. John Abney.
Good evening, County Council. Again, I'm John Abney. I've been a resident here in Beaufort County for about 47 years. I'm a retired military member, retired federal employee, former educator. I taught some for a few years there at Park College on the air station. I have a few things that I'd like to address tonight. First being, hats off to the military, first responders, and especially to our educators. I do not understand why it's so, we talk about affordable housing and things that's going to benefit and make this a livable community. If we do not pay the salaries to make it affordable for people to live here, there's just no way that we can be effective here in Beaufort County. So I'm here to advocate for an increase for our teachers because they give their all every single day. Second, item number 19 on your agenda, talking about sidewalks and multi-pathways here in Beaufort County. I've seen a few referendums. I have a minute and a half. I've seen a few referendums in my time here in Beaufort, and those referendums normally come at a cost to the citizens here in Beaufort County. Every time they have said, yes, we're willing to pay those amendments in order to improve our county. However, I have seen the majority of the funding for the majority of those referendums go to Southern Beaufort County. Items have been identified for Northern Beaufort County that were lacking or needed much assistance. Every single time, the majority of the funding went to Southern Beaufort County, even though we have a list of items that are in default in Northern Beaufort County. What I'm here to ask, that as you prepare to ask for another referendum for additional funding, that you specify where those funds can be spent, and please prioritize Northern Beaufort County and the areas that really need to be addressed here in northern Beaufort County. If we have to do this referendum and somehow, in the next year, come up with another one to go back to southern Beaufort County, so be it. But we can't allow northern Beaufort County to continue to left behind year after year after year and go deeper and deeper into disarray. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, John, and thank you for your service. At this point, we're going to terminate this part of the citizen comment. Those we didn't get to, please hang around and we'll pick that up in the citizen's comment at the end of this, and I'll do it during your piece. At this point, we have liaison and committee reports from any of the members. That anybody have a comment or a report that they want to make?
Yes. The Stormwater Board met on May 18th last week on Wednesday. They're making great progress on several projects, to include awarding the engineering contract for the Shell Point area, and they've received some preliminary approval of a project to clean up the damage that was done to Matthew during Hurricane Matthew at Arthur Horn, to turn it back into what it was originally intended to be, which was a stormwater detention area and park. And I attended that meeting as a liaison. Thank you.
Anybody else? Anybody online? From public facilities on the consent agenda, we have two items. One, which is the approval of an award for the hauling services for solid waste and recycling. It's $1.8 million. And we have a second one for the approval of an award for the design and engineering of our new recycling facility that we're planning to serve the county, and that's for, I'm not sure what the amount is on that one, though it's probably a time and cost. And both of those are in budget and came through committee on a unanimous approval. When that would take us to the consent agenda, those two items are before us. I'm looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda with those two items.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, York.
I'll second, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Logan. Is there any discussion on these two items? Seeing none, these two pass without objection. That takes us to a public hearing and resolution on the purchase of some property relative to, from the Technical College of the Low Country. I know there's three of you here to speak, and we will get to you on that. But Eric, you want to give us an overview on this particular item? And maybe a little bit of the background, and then we'll take some public comments on it and see if we can get it resolved.
Yes, sir. We added this to a budget amendment late in the process. We were aware that TCL wanted to dispose of these properties through some mechanism. We presented the idea to council about purchasing these properties and holding them for some sort of workforce type housing, or making them available for some type of workforce housing. That's a lot different than a rumor that's circulating that it's, Section 8 or subsidized housing. That's not what we're talking about doing here. The council consented to purchase the property. That is complete. But in order for us to do that, we have to have a public hearing underneath our rules and procedures. So the public hearing is being held this evening. And as I said earlier, I'm holding a community meeting with a specific community that is adjacent to this property, and for anyone else interested, on June 2nd at 6 p.m. For two purposes. One, to explain what our intent was with the purchase of the property and the process as to why, with it being a TCL property, how unique that sale of the property is for public entities to sell properties in that regard, particularly if they were owned by the state of South Carolina, and then also to get feedback from the community as to what they might like to see us do with that. We have no plans for the property. We do think it's an excellent opportunity for us to secure the parcels, and that's what we ended up doing through your support. and we will develop a plan, and that will come back, and we will work with the community to develop a plan, hopefully that's suitable for everyone as we decide what to do with the property.
So, as Eric said, we did take action on this at our prior meeting, but we wanted to have a public hearing on it. We have 3 people who want to speak, Robert, Brian, and Matthew. Robert, come on up, and the other 2, Brian and Matthew, as you see, they're finishing. Come on up and speak. So, come on forward. Robert? We have a Robert. Robert looks like Swartz. I'm sorry.
I'm Bob Swart. I live at 840 Rebo Road. I haven't worked for the community of Beaufort, but I did serve 31 and a half years in the Coast Guard. I selected Beaufort as my retirement community, and I'm very happy with the residents that I have. The gentleman just explained another meeting that's going to transpire on the 2nd of June concerning the purchase of the TLC property adjacent to the TLC community, just down the street from where I live. I intend to attend that meeting and make my comments known there. I would ask and invite each of you that's sitting at the head table here, before you make any type of a decision on this, please come park in my driveway and then try to get out onto Rebo Road. That's one of the heaviest traveled roads in this community. And if we do something to develop more businesses or residents on Rebo Road, it's going to increase the traffic, which is right now pretty heavy. I have a heck of a time trying to get out of my driveway at times, and if we increase the population that lives on Rebo Road, it's just going to put a greater load on that highway. So it's something that's I think is worth considering. The other thing, we're looking at $600,000+ an acre for that land that you're buying. This gentleman here made an excellent point. If we're going to buy land for affordable housing, there's plenty of farmland that's available. When I drove out here, I came down Paris Island Parkway and came in to this facility. I saw many, many, many areas out there that to me would be well suited for affordable housing, rather than put more housing into an already congested area. Once again, I'll extend my invitation to each of you. Come park in my driveway and then try to get back out onto Rebo Road. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Brian looks like Stevens.
Good evening. My name is Brian Stevens. I live at 864 Rebo Road. Before I start, I want to echo the thanks to you, this council, and to the county staff for all that you do for our communities. I must say that I just learned about this project yesterday, and I believe it was probably my neighbor Bob that provided some materials to inform me of this. Oh, okay, I thought maybe you dropped off the materials. But if you look at the map, I'm directly adjacent to one of those properties that is now being considered for this project. It's a little disappointing, I must say, to know that this decision and this purchase at this level of funding was made without any public input. I certainly appreciate, Mr. Greenway, the session that you have scheduled to address some of these concerns here, and I will certainly be there. Recognizing that I don't have enough data, I've got a lot of concerns, obviously. The proposal in this type of development could be very out of character with this neighborhood. As many of you know, it's a well-established, very mature neighborhood, and in recent years, it's seen tremendous investment in property improvements, enhancements, and beautification. 3 years ago, we were one of those families that found this beautiful community and this beautiful neighborhood in this peaceful setting and well-established, mature homes. So to think that a development like this would come into this neighborhood, much less directly next door, depending on how it develops, is very, very concerning. So I would ask that any progression of this initiative be paused at a minimum until there is the public setting to hear input and to get additional comment on this. And Ms. Howard, as your home district, I hope we can count on your support for appropriate resolution here. Thank you.
Thank you. Matthew?
Good evening. Good evening, council members. I'm a little bit nervous with all this, and I thank you, sir. Despite it being rumors that it's subsidized housing or Section 8 housing, my job understands the workforce and affordable housing. We really need it. We need to have people in the healthcare setting, nurses, etc. So beyond that, I'm not adamantly opposed to this project. However, I do have some concerns as the other gentleman, and it's a little bit concerning that we've approved $1.2 million in property with no plan. That's not good fiscal responsibility. So I utilize 410 and 412 Rebo Road as a framework. 2 buildings on a single lot, 8 single-bedroom apartments rented at $825 based on the affordable housing and workforce prospects. I've performed an analysis. At the minimum, county could erect 15 buildings or 60 apartments with at least 60 new vehicles for each of those residents. That would inject 60 new vehicles into our small community, which traffic is already a problem. So my concerns are for the board to consider in doing this. I have heard Beaufort County is not the first entity to consider this purchase, and can you confirm the Beaufort Housing Authority turned down this package and why? I'm shaking, sorry. Will the property involved be rezoned from single-family residences prior to the county purchasing property? If not, could this be a contingency prior to the purchase? Otherwise, it's just land being purchased for $1.2 million that we can do nothing with. The fourth issue, which I think is the most important for everybody here, is have the proper infrastructure studies been performed with regards to our neighborhood? For example, traffic volume and impact, road conditions, structural soundness and widening to accommodate increased traffic, stormwater runoff capabilities, sewer capacity, water capacity, as long as electrical and fiber optics. I understand there is no plan, but these are the things that I believe should be evaluated prior to funding a purchase of this magnitude. In closing, prior to the purchase of the property, I believe there should be significant transparency, proper infrastructure studies, zoning variance approval, and time for the citizens to understand what our taxes are being paid on. Because right now, as just admitted, our taxes are going $1.2 million of property and we have no plan. We need more fiscal responsibility in our government, ladies and gentlemen. In closing, please consider suspending the purchase until items listed above have been completed and or revealed publicly. I would enjoy working with each of you, all of you, in achieving these goals and moving forward, but this is just done backwards, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. That takes us to the next items. I've asked Councilwoman Howard.
Mr. Chairman, it might be apropos to inform everybody that this decision had already been made at the last council meeting, and the purchase has already gone through. It was not a unanimous vote. Y'all should read the minutes of last meeting to see the discussion on it. Thank you.
Yeah, Brian is correct. We did make the decision at the last council meeting to purchase it. But I think the track that we're on is to now figure out what is the best use of that property, and there were good reasons for us to purchase it. But thank you, Brian, you're correct. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I would like
Yes,
to take some time to comment on it.
Okay, well, in fact, I probably was remiss in moving to the next item. So yes, if any council members want to speak, they're more than welcome to. Thank you, Logan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple things. One, thank you guys all for coming out today. This is a great turnout. We always want to fill whatever room we're in because everything on here is important. Everything should have an input. I do find it kind of ironic that the school budget goes on the same agenda as this TCL property. I watched everybody clap in this room the moment we talked about getting affordable housing and raising wages for teachers in Beaufort County, and then clap at the same time for a rumor of type of affordable housing not going through. I struggle with that myself because it's a little contradicting for us in Beaufort County, and that's something we struggle with here on our own council that we go back and forth on. I am a former educator in Beaufort County, and I have my reasons for leaving, and we'll talk about some of that later on. But I will let you guys know, if you have watched some of the meetings, nowhere in here did anybody on the county council talk about Section 8 housing or government subsidized housing. Our opinion behind this, and mine specifically, I'll speak on myself, if anybody else wants to after that, I can say was, if this property was not taken and purchased through Beaufort County. It goes open to the public sector. When it goes to the public sector, we have no say-so of what can be built there after that, as long as it meets the zoning requirements. So right now the ball is in the county's court, and we're communicating with the public, and that's why we were able to go forward with a purchase like this and have this dialogue where if somebody in the private sector went in and paid 2 or 3 times as much as we did for that land, drove up your cost of living, and could have built what they saw fit themselves. And you would have had no say-so in that. And I can speak with that with quite a bit of confidence because I represent Bluffton, District 7, and I have a neighborhood, Woodbridge, and it is one of the hardest neighborhoods to get out of in Beaufort County. They're right there on Buckwalter. They do not qualify for a light yet because they have not met the threshold for DOT until something in front of their neighborhood gets built. That neighborhood came out in arms when something in front of them was purchased. They didn't like that it was being developed, even though it's had a for sale sign on there for 22 years. They were not happy about it. Rightfully so. It is what they're used to. And I'm totally on board, and I supported them and heard them out and had 4 different public meetings with them and actually brought the builder in to meet with them to figure out a plan where everybody was happy with. One of the downfalls with that, now it looks like that project's not going through whatsoever. And now it's going back to the public sector, and now they're talking about a strip shopping center going in there instead, which is worse than what they were fighting before. So thankfully with these TCL properties, now we do have the ability to have this communication with the public to figure out the right thing. I can tell you my goal behind this property, if we did decide to go forward with some type of housing, it is not apartments, it is not rental. We want to figure out, let me rephrase that, I would like to figure out a way where we get first-time home buyers, and we've looked at different architects for other projects before. These are Charleston-style homes, the same architecture we have in Old Town Beaufort. So when we talk about our nurses, our doctors, our teachers, the person that works at the grocery store right across the street, I understand your argument for farmland. I lived right there in Bluffton. We have development happening everywhere. But I have no problem living next door to anybody. And I would continue to have this dialogue with everyone at the meeting in June, or the meeting, I believe it's next Thursday. I will be there so we can get more in depth with this. I want this communication to be open and be positive and see what's the best outcome for all of Beaufort County. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I have one comment. As many of you know, and I talked to some of you before the meeting, this is in District 4. I look forward to the meeting on June 2nd. I look forward to your comments. I look forward to any ideas you may have. Councilman Cunningham and I have also talked about the idea of lease to own or private ownership first-time buyers. Beaufort Memorial Hospital has already implemented a plan like that for their people. This might give us an opportunity to do something similar to what they're doing. And we're open, of course, to all the ideas, and we look forward to hearing it. I hear your concerns about traffic. I understand that. I go down Reebok Road at least 4 times a day, as we all do when we live in that area. And we will, and the city of Beaufort will be involved in this, of course, because this is in the city of Beaufort. Thank you.
Chris?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Quick question. What exactly is our action item at council for this item tonight?
As I understand it, we don't really have one. We basically approved the purchase, but then the real actions will take place when we start to weigh in on what ought to happen to this. Am I saying that correctly, Eric?
Stu, that's correct. This is a no action item.
Yeah.
This is just a mandatory public hearing for something we've already taken action on.
Yeah, we were not able to meet the 15-day notice prior to action for the public hearing. That is something I typically would not normally recommend that you do in the future, and we will do our best in the future to make sure that public hearings, if we're purchasing property or doing anything, happen before the final vote on any item. This one is just a little out of process, and it's just a public hearing tonight, so no additional action is needed by council other than the education process about the community meeting, and for the community to know that there's going to be plenty more opportunity for them to have input on this, as will the council, as we move forward with the property.
Thank you. I would say since I've been on council, which is almost 4 years at this point, we've never done it this way.
I agree.
I think that it's unfortunate.
I agree.
And backwards.
I agree.
And that, especially when it impacts a community like this, that there needs to be community involvement before we go ahead with something like this. But I voted.
I agree.
I voted against it the whole way. But that's just my 2 cents for now. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, I agree with you, Councilmember Herbishaw.
Anybody else, council, online or here? Not seeing any. I'm going to ask Councilwoman Howard to take us through items 12 through 15. These all came out of her her Natural Resources Committee.
Yes, sir.
They came through committee and came through first reading unanimously. And tell us a little bit about those. And I think you have another comment from another organization.
I'm going to go through these briefly, and we have some public comment from the Coastal Conservation League. They submitted in writing concerning all 4. The first one, number 12, is a text amendment to the Community Development Code called the CDC. Sections in Division 3.2 and Sections 3.3, clarifying parking space requirement conflicts between zoning districts and the parking space requirements set in Section 5.5.4B of parking space requirements. Number 13 is a second reading of an ordinance for a text amendment to the CDC, Appendix A.13.50.D, guest houses, to clarify the standards for minimum lot size requirements, specifically for guest houses located in the May River Community Preservation District. That is only in the May River Community District. Number 14 is a second reading of an ordinance for a text amendment to the Community Development Code regarding the base site calculations to clarify that both jurisdictional and non-jurisdictional wetlands must be subtracted from the gross site area to determine the base site area for development. And the last one is the second reading of in public hearing for an ordinance for a text amendment to the CDC, Section 5.11.100.f.1, regarding tree removal on developed properties to close a loophole which allows specimen and mitigation trees to be removed post-construction of single-family homes. And as part of the public hearing, I will read the comments from Jessie White that she sent in. This is regarding items particularly 14 and 15. Chairman Passament and council members, on behalf of the Coastal Conservation League, it is my pleasure to submit comment in support of the proposed CDC text amendments to clarify that all wetlands must be subtracted from the developable area of a site to strengthen Beaufort County's tree protection requirements. We agree with planning staff's recommendations regarding both text amendments and commend staff for bringing these matters forward. Strengthening the county's natural resource protection standards, particularly protections for mature and specimen trees in connection with development, is clearly identified as a strategic goal of the recently adopted 2040 Comprehensive Plan. Trees are both an environmental and an economic resource, contributing to Beaufort County's sense of place and performing valuable ecological functions that benefit the local community. Mature trees effectively reduce soil erosion and stormwater runoff, naturally remove pollutants from the air and water, counteracting the heat island effect of development and lowering temperatures, contribute to the critical wildlife habitat and diversity, and lead to higher property values and quality of life. Beaufort County has historically spearheaded efforts to conserve its natural resources. The proposed revisions to the CDC further the county's strong track record and will ensure environmental protection standards are consistently and uniformly applied to preserve Beaufort County's ecosystems, strong sense of space, and community quality of life. Thank you for your consideration and leadership. Respectively, Jessie White, South Coast Office Director of the Coastal Conservation League.
Thank you. Now open the public hearing for all four of these. Is there anybody here who would like to speak to any of the four that Ms. Howard described? Seeing none, the public hearing is closed. Is there any member of council who would like to consider one of these separately? Otherwise, I would take the four of them together.
I think we had some comments from Rob Merchant regarding the tree specimen part of it, or would you like to make some comments? We had questions during the natural resource meeting about it.
Certainly. Welcome, Rob.
Well, good evening. And I'll be brief. One of the, actually the fourth item that you had mentioned, the actual amendment that we're bringing forward, we have a different set of tree standards for individual property owners, people, homeowners, than we do for people who are developing property. So if somebody comes in and develops a subdivision, we have standards for preserving trees on the site, or what we identify as specimen trees. But when it's a homeowner who owns a property and wants to take a tree down, the threshold is higher, as far as the size of the tree. And the idea is not to become a burden to property owners who might have a hazard tree on their property, as opposed to somebody who's developing a property. And so that's what the amendment pertains to. The standards that we have for specimen trees have been in place pretty much since the mid-90s, so we've had them in place for 25 years. I think the question was raised about pine trees, slash pine, loblolly pine. We did speak with the South Carolina Forestry Commission on this, specifically Francis Waite, who is an urban and community forester, because they're dealing with trees in developed areas. And they strongly recommended that we continue to preserve loblolly pines because they're part of our local environments. They provide habitat for different species. I would say that the bald eagle that we have over at Whitehall and at Widgeon Point, they're both nesting in loblolly pines. They're very tall trees, so they're a good advantage point for them. There's just, they've sent a letter here that I can give as part of the record, similar into the comments that Jesse White made. But given the experts on my staff, I have Amanda Flake here, who is our natural resources planner and also a certified arborist. So if you have specific questions about tree preservation, she can answer those for you. But our recommendation as staff, we certainly do not see a reason to change our definition for specimen tree. But if it is council's desire to do so, we're going to be coming forward probably in the August timeframe with an additional set of amendments, and so we recommend, if that's the case, we address it at that time. So.
Thank you, Rob. Questions for Rob or Amanda? York?
I do. I'd just like to see a copy of that letter.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Should I just provide this to, or I could forward it to you, or?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Mr. Chairman, I do want to make a question for
Yes,
Rob.
Paul.
Maybe I didn't understand it correctly. Rob, are you saying that the standard for loblolly, let's use loblolly pines as an example, are stricter for a private homeowner than they are for a developer, or is it the other way around?
Well, the way it goes is if you are developing a property, the size that would make it a specimen tree is 24 caliber inches. But if you are a homeowner and you are wanting to get a permit to remove a tree, our definition of a grand tree or a tree that would require a permit, it would need to be 36-inch caliper. So it would have to be a larger tree to I guess, be put in that special category of needing to be preserved.
So that is actually a lower standard.
Yes,
not a higher,
it's a
right,
higher
that's what I thought.
standard,
Thank
and
you.
it's a bigger tree, but it's a lower standard in that, there's fewer cases where somebody's going to have a tree that size on their property.
Okay. Anybody else? Does anybody want to take one of these items separately? Seeing none.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion for adoption of items 12 through 15.
Thank you. Is there a second? Second from Chris. Any further discussion? Any objection? Seeing none, those four items stand approved without objection, and these will come back probably on the consent agenda at our next meeting. That brings us to item number 16, which is our first reading on our budget ordinance. Who is going to speak to that? As Whitney's coming up, we go through a long process of workshops and then Finance Committee, and then that brings us here to first reading of this budget, which will serve us for the next fiscal year. Good to have you with us.
Good evening. You do have before you a recommendation tonight that came out of the Finance Committee for the fiscal year 22-23 budget for the general fund and all other governmental funds that we have, including enterprise as well. In addition to that, you'll see something new this year that's part of the budget book that entails a capital improvements plan. As Mr. Greenway acknowledged earlier, there are numerous facilities all throughout the county that are in dire need of improvement. So what we would like to see this year is a slight reallocation of the operating millage over last year. The millage itself did not increase, nor did it decrease, but we've simply reallocated a portion from operating over to capital. He also mentioned that there was a slight modification as the budget came recommended from Finance Committee that actually returned about $5,000 more to surplus this year. It was $1,000 at Finance Committee. It is now a little over $6,000. So if you have no further questions, we would simply ask for your support at first reading.
Questions? Comments? Seeing none, I'll look for a motion to approve the budget at first reading.
I'll second.
Okay, we have Mark and Alice. Any further comments? Is there any objections from council? Seeing none, this stands approved at first reading for the county budget and associated organizations.
Thank you.
Thank you, as always. Our next item is number 17, which is the budget for the school district. And it's always great to have Tanya Crosby with us and tell us all about what's going on at the school district.
Good evening. Hope you all are doing well. So I wanted to make a note very quickly that we do have Bluffton High School graduation this evening. So Dr. Rodriguez and our school board members are in attendance at the graduation, and we have a graduation every night this week, so including Saturday. So we'll all be very busy, but I just wanted to acknowledge the support of teachers and other staff members in the room. If you would raise your hand of those in attendance. So great crowd this evening. I just wanted to acknowledge them and make sure that we knew that we appreciate their support in this budget. You mentioned that the county had a series of meetings and workshops. We too at the district have had a series of meetings and have delved into this budget, and it had a series of changes and belt tightening and that sort of thing throughout the process. And last meeting on Monday with Finance Committee, we presented some basic information overview to provide what our budget in total, some of the summarized information. And so this evening I'm just going to hit a few of the highlights that are enclosed in the handout that I provided and just basically give you a quick executive summary. So on Tuesday, May 17th, the Board of Education unanimously certified and approved the fiscal year 22-23 general fund budget in the amount of $298.1 million, with a proposed operations mill rate of 125.6 mills, which is an increase of 4 mills. The maximum increase, I didn't note it in my summary, but I thought it was important to note that the maximum increase this year for the school district is 8.7 mills, and we're proposing an increase of 4. We are expecting, want to preserve some of that millage for future years. We're in uncertain times economically. A lot of the speakers have mentioned that this evening, and we want to be sure that we cover and allow the maximum flexibility for the board going forward if needed. The same evening, I do want to mention that the budget for the debt service fund was also approved at $81.1 million, and at a millage rate of 36.3, and resulted in no increase in the debt service millage. So there will be no change in that millage rate. So just one important thing to note, and Dr. Rodriguez keeps reminding me to say it, is that 100% of this tax increase is going to go to pay for teacher salary increases. So the school district is able to fund about half of the teacher salary increases that are enclosed in this budget, and we do need the additional 4 mills in order to fund the remaining increase. And the reason for the increase is that we did a comparison, and we did see that the base teacher salary of those that are compared at the state level we were relatively low, in the lowest third of the state in that base teacher salary, and those are permanent wages. So we're really losing some ground because of just doing the minimum or what's mandated by the state. And surrounding counties are actually higher than us. Jasper and Allendale counties were actually higher than our base wage. So that does not include, when I say base wage, that does not include the locality supplement. So that means, so this year there are some efforts to move half of that locality into the permanent wages and make them subject to retirement, which we're doing. So that will help to boost our base salary, and our goal is to actually be first, if not, or close to first in terms of the base teacher salary in the state. And what's important is when a teacher is hired right out of college, they often are looking at that base minimum salary to see who is the highest in the state. Who, if I'm going to college in the upstate, do I want to stay there and relocate because Greenville's the highest in the state? Well, now we want Beaufort to be highest in the state. We're competing with our neighboring Georgia, right across the border in Chatham County Schools, and their minimum teacher salary is $44,500. So what we're proposing is to get in the $45,500 range for Beaufort County Schools. In addition, it's not just the teachers that hold things together and make all of the efforts in our schools. It's classified, professional, and administrators as well. And so there are our percentage increases, cost of living increases allocated in this budget for them as well. And in addition to a salary study that's already underway and will be reported out to the board in the summer. So, so there are funds allocated in this budget for that. And there was one question in particular about the mill value, and Mr. Lawson, I believe you mentioned it, and you looked a little perplexed when I answered the question of the value of the mill we're including is $1,418,000, and I just wanted to point out that there is a difference between the counties and all the municipalities' operations mill rates, or mill values, and the school districts. And just, I know you know this, but as a reminder, school operations taxes are exempt from our primary homes in South Carolina due to Act 388. So that's a unique law that is unique to South Carolina from other states, and it benefits primary homes in the state of South Carolina, but it does put a large amount of the tax burden on our 6% or non-owner occupied residences and our businesses as well. So just wanted to make that point. So I think our speakers have touched mostly a lot on the cost of living issues that we're facing, so I won't reiterate that this evening. So at this point, I will be happy to take any comments or questions you may have.
Comments for Tanya? Chris?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Comment and 2 questions, I guess. So the comment would be, it's great to see that the total increase is going to go to the teachers. I think that's where it should go, and I think that that's great. My first question would be, again, it's great that we're going to be first in the state or close to first in the state, but at $45,000, is it going to be enough? And if not, what are the plans going to be in the future to address that? And then number 2, which may be a silly question, but I'm just sitting here wondering about it. With all of the talk of the county getting involved in affordable housing and the need for affordable housing, has the school district considered getting involved in affordable housing, and or does it have the ability to? And I just honestly don't know the answer to that question.
Right. So the first question was, is it enough? Is it enough money? Is it enough of the total package to keep them here. I think it's probably a combination of both of those. So we have done a lot of research on other counties, other school districts across the state, and we know that for the most part, actually a survey went out of the school business officials today, but I don't yet have the results. But we did an informal survey of our own, and Greenville is actually moving up $2,000 to $44,500. And they're number one currently. So Fort Mill, who's just behind them, is moving up $2,000 as well. And so they're probably going to be just slightly behind. So most of those in the top ranking are 2,000, but I can't ensure that I can't ensure that we'll be number one, but I can assure you that we'll be in the top 5 at least. So it's a moving target that we're trying to meet, but we were trying to make every effort to make sure we get in the running, get in the game with the top salaries in the state. As far as affordable housing, we have had a few opportunities over the years to have discussions, and so it's a difficult discussion because our teachers don't necessarily want to come out and live in an apartment and share and have roommates. They want to be able to own their own homes and that sort of thing, and have families and yards, and that, you know, they've lived the college life as many of you have as well. So that's a tough issue, and we're not technically experts in the field of affordable housing or development, so that's sort of out of our element. And so, but we are looking at, we had a speaker at a board meeting last week that had opportunities for discounts of mortgages, or, you know, working with us on partnership. We also have another opportunity for something similar that came up this week as well. So I would say that we're not actively pursuing land or building buildings, because it's not, we're in the business of educating students and not necessarily building dwellings. So, but we'll continue to be a partner in any discussions that may have. And I know that I have Jill McCadden here, our Director of Recruiting, and I go to her all the time with questions about housing and various things, and she'll survey teachers and see what are you interested in, are you, you know, and what things might work for teachers, new teachers coming out of school. So we'll continue to be a partner with that as well. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Other questions, comments? York?
Crosby, let me make sure I understand. You did say that the bonuses that is appropriated here from council is not included in the base, and you're proposing to move part of that into the base?
Yes, sir. Yes,
and
sir.
You're currently marketing your base on what you're making, but as a teacher coming in, do they know about the bonuses?
Yes, sir. Yes, they do. It is listed as a supplement to the salary schedule below the line, but the schedule that's posted online is that of the State Department of Education's schedule, so we do mention it. It is paid in 2 installments. It's not part of their take-home pay on a regular basis, but we do include that as part of the package.
Sure, and so when we look at the base teacher's salary, if you add the bonuses to it, are we that low behind other school districts?
No, we're in the $42,000 range at that point. So what we're looking to get is the total package to be, of the base salaries to be above or one of the highest in the state. So we are competitive, but again, those are not permanent wages, not subject to retirement, and they cannot control them on a biweekly basis. So that's why we're making efforts to move those and to make into the base wage to make sure we're giving credit for it to teachers, and so allowing them to make decisions about savings at certain times of the year.
Why wouldn't you not include all of it in the base? What's the reason behind it, I guess, the rationale?
Including all of it in the base. Well, first of all, the base has been, or excuse me, the locality supplement has been around for several years now. Right. So there is an expectation of a payment at certain points in the year. And so instead of having the, 100% of it moving and having, not having that continuation of that payment in the years, in the months in which they most needed, perhaps at Christmas time and that sort of thing. The idea was to move a portion of it this year, and there would be consideration for moving the remainder of it in the future, in future years.
What percentages are you proposing move?
We don't have any particular plan set in place for that. It depends on the, it is a cost to the district of about 23% of the amount. So for this year, it costs $1 million in retirement match in order to move those funds into the base.
So it's a fringe benefit issue for you?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I had a question that I asked on the finance meeting, but I'd like for the public to hear it again. What's your deficit of teachers every year, and how many have you hired to date, and what do you still need?
I'm going to ask Jill McCadden to come up. She's much better at this than I am, so I'm going to turn this over to her.
Thank you for asking the question. I'm here to recruit tonight, teachers. To date, this is a Friday afternoon at 3:30. We have hired 213 teachers. As of Friday, again, we have 159 to hire. So as it stands, our teachers report to work August the 8th. We are missing 48 middle school teachers, 36 high school teachers, 26 special education teachers, and 49 elementary teachers.
And you usually need 300 a year.
Right, and we're sitting at about 400 right now. And that's right now. Today we had three resignations today. They're not in this report.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Mark?
Thank you. Given the number of teachers that you have hired and those that you are in the process of completing the hiring process, when you bring those new teachers on, help me understand the time frame. When you bring those new teachers on, realizing the cost of living is a disadvantage for them that actually drives them away and you lose them. Looking at the trend, do we lose them in the first month, the second month, first quarter, third quarter?
Excellent question. We're all over the board with this. The three that we lost today were down here this weekend trying to find an apartment. The three that we lost today cannot afford to live here. While they don't want to do the roommate situation, as we just discussed earlier, right now we have 42 new teachers that are already hired that have determined they cannot live on their own, and they're willing to meet, let's just say, another teacher who could be a total stranger to be a roommate, 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom. I'm not in the business of matching people up, but I do keep a list with their permission. Sometimes this works, sometimes it doesn't. But I hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
Mark?
Yes, and Ms. Crosby, thank you for coming. I'm sure Dr. Rodriguez hopes that he has a graduation every time, so you can come. Such a great job. So
it happens every year, actually.
Does it? Okay,
yes.
Well, thank you for coming. And let me just make a comment first that you pointed out. That I've lived here for 32 years now, and it took me 20 years to realize that as a homeowner, none of my taxes went to pay for the school. And people don't realize that actually it is only commercial properties or vacation homes, second home people is where we collect taxes to pay for school. So if you're sitting there thinking that I own a home and my tax is going to pay for the school, it doesn't. And that goes back to Act 388, which again has a whole other explanation to it. But I just want to say that I will support your request tonight. I do have a couple questions, however, going back through what you presented to us. And I think it was 3 years ago, the first time I went through the whole budget process, your surplus reserves was at about $15 million. And so here we are 2 years later. What is your current surplus and reserve from the past 2 years since that time?
think I thought I provided a page in the handout for you. Yes, there it is. And so at the end of fiscal year 21, which is the last completed school year, our surplus was $50 million. That was as a result, during the pandemic, there was a shutdown. And as a result of that, there was a massive amount of savings in substitute teachers, in travel, and so on. So there was an increase in fund balance in that year. We do expect it to go up slightly this year. Our revenues are coming in higher than expected, and so we do expect to be in the $3 to $4 million increase this year as projected currently. So our board has established a fund balance in the 15 to 17% range. That will take us, the latest projection will take us to 18%, but it comes back down in the proposed budget. As the budget grows, the percentages are lower. So we're projecting to be in the $54 million range. It's important to note that, so we're back into the closer to the 17% range. It's important to note that today, actually, I received a bond rating from our rating agency, Standard & Poor's, and it appears that they're going to hold us at our AA rating. And the reasoning for that, one of the reasonings for that, is the stable financial condition of the school budget and the school position. So, so they are looking to see that stable and not to decline, especially for any recurring costs that would be ongoing into future years. So that's an important element that we have, especially in a coastal county. We need to keep reserves on hand in case of any particular event that would cause an expenditure in the months of, particularly in the fall months, when our cash reserves are in the lowest. It also, the school board actually has a policy as well to keep a minimum fund balance that prevents us from needing a tax anticipation note, which is a borrowing we make annually just to make payroll in the fall. So at these are balances at June 30, but we get basically no tax revenues between June 30th and January 1. Those all come in December and January. So we need to make sure we have enough reserves on hand in the fall months in particular, which are hurricane season, to make sure that we are able to cover payroll and to pay the operational costs.
Good, and I didn't mean that as a gotcha question.
Yeah.
But in ARPA funds, are those kept separate, and what are your ARPA funds right now that you've got?
Sure, yes. We have received 4 rounds of ARPA funds. I did anticipate this question, so I have a summary in front of me. Total of over $82 million is the total allocations. Expenditures through April was $27 million, about 33%. We were allocated two of those, the largest 2 pots, 1 year ago today, or not today, but this month. And so we do expect through December, because a large amount of the activities that are noted or are committed in those ARPA funds are for summer projects. So we have summer school, summer reading program. We have our HVAC replacements to improve indoor air quality. So a lot of the capital projects are going on at that time. And in addition, the board has approved a couple of rounds of recruiting and retention bonuses, and then our dual modality bonuses as well, which have not yet been paid out and will be paid out before the end of June. So we expect to be at 59% by December of spending. And we have until September 2023 to expend ESSER 2, and then September 2024. So we have about 2.5 more years.
Great. Those are just things I saw that were missing in your form you had there. So Thank you again. Again, I am in complete support of what your request is.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Logan? I knew you had something to say.
I do want to start off by saying I'm happy to see that this came back the way it did just for the teachers. This was the biggest issue I had with the last increase of $20 million last year, and I think this one is $24 million.
Yes.
24, just shy of $24 million. That was the biggest disagreement I had with it before was how much of it did not go to the teachers based on the increase we had when our school enrollment did not rise. Last time I checked, we finally just got back to pre-COVID levels of enrollment, and our charter schools waiting lists is higher than they've ever been, which I also saw you put, I think, 2.3 million for charter schools as well, which I think is fantastic. I struggle with this a little bit, yet even still, because we've already been advertising to teachers that this increase is going through. I mean, and that's known because teachers are here in the room. I've had other teachers talk to me as well that this was what's coming down from the state as well as the intention of Beaufort County, which is fantastic. But even with that, we still have as many openings as we do. I went on record saying last time, actually, Jill's the one that hired me when I started working at Beaufort County, and my old boss is even in the room. With that said, my biggest issue I've hoped that we can tackle together or figure out a way, and I asked to see if we could come up with a plan to work together before, and I'm hoping this year we can do it, is where can we check the morale of these schools for our teachers? And I've seen some of the surveys, and I know that you can give a 5-question survey and 3 out of the 5 be taken positive and 2 be negative. And sometimes I get crazy looks from teachers. I've been in those shoes. I know what it's like to get your planning period taken every single day. I know what it's like staying after hours for a meeting every other Monday for a staff meeting. I've known what it's like going to a meeting that could have been an email. I know what it's like getting pulled from a classroom every other week for an IEP meeting, and these things happen. So I'm all for supporting, the raise for the teachers, and I think it's a start. But I really hope that we can take a look at which schools we're having the biggest availability in, how many people are leaving this school and that school, and what's the reasoning for it, and then which schools are having the best retention rate. And I think we need to start looking at those schools to see what they're doing, how they're supporting their teachers, how they're supporting their students, so we can retain those teachers. Because you said so yourself, as well as other people around here in the room, the money is not just going to fix the problem. Jasper pays more per capita per kid than we do, and we have a better school district than Jasper County. We have people that move to Beaufort County just so they can put their kids in the school. Let's be real. We have people that'll fake their address in Beaufort County so their kids can go to school in Beaufort County. And these are realities. I do think we need a raise, but I do think we need to take a hard look at that morale inside our schools. And I put that invitation out again to you guys as well as the other school board members. How can we figure out how to support these teachers on a day-to-day basis so they don't go home wanting to quit their jobs? And I've been there. I left teaching, and I can tell you it wasn't the salary. And I had a great administration, but the rest of the stuff took its toll, and I literally took a pay cut to leave. And so I can't speak for them anymore. I'm not in the school district, but I hope that those questions can be asked for those teachers in actual confidentiality with those surveys. And I know we say they come confidential, but I also know that someone will click yes, 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 yes all across the board just to make sure they don't get blacklisted in their transfer to another school. And it's a reality in this job and every job. And because they don't want to create waves, they just want to start fresh somewhere else. So I don't have the answer for that. I don't know what's the right way to go about it, but I am completely open with the school board and you guys as well to figure out how we can rectify that to boost the morale inside of our school districts, especially coming out of COVID. So I will support you today on that. I do have questions later on, but I want to dive a little bit more deep into the financial aspects about which money moved where that wasn't spent, fund balance as well. I'm sure every business does it. We had $5 million left. Let's put it towards this, and we won't put it in the fund balance, but we'll just redirect it. Because technically, we just approve a budget. That's a dollar amount. You can use that money however you see fit. With that, I do have one question today I know I wanted to ask. I believe in the last raise for the $20 million, you guys advocated for 13 new positions on that budget, and I wanted to know how many of those 13 new positions did actually get filled.
Which positions in particular are you referring to?
In your budget, you asked for funding for 13 new
school employees, and I believe we actually asked what they would be, and you said it could be anywhere from a reading coach to a teacher. It would depend how the year goes on, where those funds needed to go for which specific teacher. And I was just curious, because I know we have shortages already, how many of those 13 positions actually got filled for that?
Well, I didn't have that specific response ready
You're fine,
for this
you're fine.
evening, but I will definitely go back. I think we talked about interventionists in positions.
I believe so.
And so we had 15 specific intervention teachers that were slated, and the exact number that are filled, I'd have to go back and bring that back information to you. So, and I'd happy to, if you have any other questions, any council member, I'd be happy to take any in advance so I can prepare them for the next time, or send them back to you in advance as well. So, but I know that they have been filled, and through the budget process this year, we have ensured that any that hadn't been allocated were redirected to a school that was requesting or needing them. And we can show you a listing of the interventionists that we do have across the district as well. So I'd venture to say that every elementary and middle school have interventionists at the least, but we can show you some numbers behind that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Paul or Brian, any comments or questions?
Okay.
Not seeing any.
No.
Yes, York?
One last question. I see in your proposal you're moving from 25 steps to 26. How many other school districts really have 25 or 26 steps in this salary pay scale? And is your strategy to get to a delta somewhere along the line and steps?
Yes, sir.
What is that?
The goal is, for now, internal goal is 28 years. That is the retirement number of years till you are eligible for retirement in the school district. So a teacher or anyone working for the school district is eligible at 28 years. So we were at 24 just a few years ago. Last year we moved to 25 steps. And so what happens is, if we give a step increase that's mandated by the state of South Carolina, and we are holding at 25 steps, then anyone who moves to the 26th step or any step above those number of years — we have some employees that have been with us 40, 45 years — they do not receive the benefit of that step increase, which is valued at about 1.5% to 2%. And so by moving up just one step at a relatively nominal cost compared to the size of our budget, it allows us to say that every teacher is eligible for a step increase. All teachers are eligible. So at a cost of about $200,000, we're able to move up one step per year, and the goal is to move up until we get to 28 years. And we were at 25, very low on the scale. Many school districts have much greater numbers of years at their max step than ours. Yes. Mm-hmm.
A couple of comments. I think several of the members spoke to the concern about the cost of living. And I think we know that here in Beaufort County, we have a higher cost of living than probably many of the districts that you're comparing to. And, you know, my belief in my prior life was I tend to like to pay more, expect more, and find that you get a lot more. And teachers are our most important commodity. So I would like to see you actually take a look and come back as part of the subsequent readings on what it would really take to make us number one, including cost of living. And maybe it's something that we can consider as a community, because it does seem that we're struggling with the number of vacancies that we have, the people that are leaving that can't find apartments. So I might ask that you might do that. Now that you've certified the budget, I'm sure our staff will be looking at it a little bit for us, things like mill values and that kind of thing. But we always enjoy when you're here. I need to look for a motion to approve the school budget on first reading.
I'll make the motion,
Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Alice?
I'll second.
Is that Mark? Gerald? Okay, Gerald seconds. Is there any further discussion or comments?
Mr. Rodman, I do want to make a comment.
Yes, Paul.
I don't know how many other people on council actually own 6% properties that pay this, but I do, and I'm happy to support it. Thank you.
Good.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
One thing before you vote, we've heard a lot of clapping from the teachers here tonight, so I do unusual things, so I think it would be a nice gesture on the part of the council and staff and everyone else in the room to recognize the job that our teachers do by giving them a round of applause.
Would you
Ms.
all
Crosby
stand with your
and
teachers?
everyone.
Stand up. Okay, thank you. That takes us to two items, and these relate to the transportation. Oh, I'm sorry, did we vote on that? No, I didn't vote on it, I'm sorry. They had a motion? Is there any objection? Okay, stands approved without objection at first reading, and we'll look forward to seeing you in the month of June. Thank you as always. That takes us to the old item number 20, and this relates to the transportation sales tax. And we're taking it in two steps. One is the work that they did, and then the second one relates to the ordinance and when we might want to consider the timing of this. So, before we go here, because I think we're going to run over, I would look for a motion to extend beyond the 8 o'clock hour.
I'll make a motion to extend beyond the 8 o'clock hour.
Second it happily, Alice.
Any objection?
I oppose.
Without objection, we extend for those.
I oppose, sir.
Pardon me?
Did you hear me, Stu? I oppose.
You oppose, okay. We got you oppose. We got two opposition, so apparently it's 7-2. 7-2. For those that are visiting with us, we turn into a pumpkin at 8 o'clock unless we agree to extend the meeting.
Don't forget we moved to 18 up.
Yeah.
Or 20 up.
Yeah. So, Jared, give us an update on the good work that the committee did, and then we will, as I said, we'll take it in two phases. One, looking at the report itself, and then have a discussion about the timeline of implementation.
Sure, absolutely. Is this on? Sure. So as presented last week at Public Facilities Committee, we had Chairman of the TAC Committee, Mr. Dean Moss. He probably doesn't need introduction. He probably could introduce me. He's more well-known in the community, much more well-known. But thankfully, he was created as the chairman of the committee. We spent 11 hard weeks. If you include last week and this week, we got 13 weeks of 2 hours. So I know the teachers deserve a lot of pay, but I think we probably ought to start taking account of our volunteers and what we ask some of our citizens that join these committees. So we appreciate everything that you've done, Dean, to support this initiative that council's asked us to take a look at. And even though we talked about it last week at committee, not everybody was there from council, so I've asked Dean if he can kind of go over the highlights of what was talked about and what's presented to you in the packet that you have for the sales tax. So, Dean?
Thank you, Jared. Mr. Chairman, thank you. Members of council. As I said in my memo, we met, I think, 11 times from February on, and you were generous enough to give us another 2 weeks, and I apologize for not being able to get this done as quickly as we wanted to. But the bottom line is we achieved unanimous support from the members of the committee, and I would like to compliment council on their appointees. They all were very, very creative and worked very hard. There were a lot of disagreements as we went along. A lot of people wanted it one way and a lot of another way, but by the time we were done, we had a unanimous approach to everything except one thing, and that one thing was when to hold the referendum. And it broke pretty much 50-50 in the committee. The group of folks looked at the situation we're in and said, we can't wait. We have growth, too much growth, too many cars. We've got to start to deal with it. The other group said, it's an awful time to hold a referendum. The economy's lousy. We have inflation. People are still fretting over the unsuccessful referendum we did previously. And so we shouldn't do it. We should wait. We should spend more time working on it. So in the language we finally agreed on in the memorandum, it was at the earliest feasible date, and that gets dropped right in your laps. I'm sorry. You wanted from us a project list and/or categories for the referendum questions, an amount of the sales tax to be collected, and/or the duration of that sales tax collection period. So that's what we have given you. And I'll make this quick because I know people are interested in getting home. I want to start by saying that the staff was fabulous. They did a fabulous job, led by Jared, and a lot of support from the county administrator to get this done. But they did a great job. So we're bringing you, I guess, a complicated set of proposals. The first is a series of projects specific to particular highways, which generally is the consensus of both the staff, but also the LATS committee run by LOCOG, and other priorities that have been set by other folks, including the county comprehensive plan. So we start with those, and then we ended up secondly with a set of what I'll call transportation improvement programs, and we split those down the middle. We recommend a 10-year penny sales tax, essentially 1% on a dollar, and that it begin whenever effectively you agree that it should begin, run for 10 years. We've projected that that sales tax over that period of time will collect approximately $700 million, plus or minus, depending on how we grow and other things. And so we basically are going to give you a series of projects and improvements. The first from specific projects is Highway 170 for $80 million, as defined at this point preliminarily by the staff, based upon the work that's currently being done by the county out there in the community. We expect that would be increasing the capacity, the safety, and everything else associated with about 4.5 miles of 170 from 462 coming in from Jasper County down to 278. It's conceivable that working with them, with Jasper County, we can bring in a number of other associated projects, including widening of 278 itself, or other related projects, utilizing a significant amount of money from the feds and the state. Secondly, Highway 46 improvements, two particular sections, the first going from the traffic circle to Jasper County line, which we propose you should consider 4-laning and expanding. From the traffic circle back to Buckwalter Parkway, which is the scenic byway designated, it has to be a lot more careful, and we suggest improvements to intersections and other things that make the traffic move more smoothly and increase the safety. In Bluffton, we're proposing $40 million, which would be applied to the priorities that the LATS program has identified for the Bluffton area, and that those decisions as to which of those projects should be pursued should be left to the Bluffton Town Council. You would be doing the work, you would be finding the projects, you would be moving the projects forward, but Bluffton Town Council would be the source of kind of the recommendations of let's do this one, let's do that one. On Hilton Head, also a series of municipal projects based upon their determined needs. They have priority lists, which they have been working on some widenings, on some pathways, on some beautification, other kinds of things that they were proposing $40 million there. And 278 project enhancements. This would be enhancements to the current project on 278, including the bridges. On Northern Beaufort County, Highway 21 and 21 Business, effectively looking at the area from the Paris Island Gateway, the Paris Island Bridge, all the way up Rebo Road, up to Boundary Street, and from basically Town Hall around on Boundary and Carteret down to the Woods Memorial Bridge. Generally, those projects would be increasing safety, increasing capacity, improving flow-through, making the place look better, just generally improving that entire alignment. I live in Port Royal, and I will tell you that specifically the areas on the access to the big bridge going to Ladies Island is a significant problem for the entire community, both coming from Ladies Island and going on to Ladies Island either way, but specifically from the south, which drains all of southern Beaufort County, heading on to Ladies Island, where a lot of folks live. Ladies Island corridor improvements, this would be an additional monies and some additional projects for the projects approved by the 18 referendum, which we did not, unfortunately, make large enough to do the job. So a lot of interest in that. Now, those are the projects specifically. Additionally, looking forward 10 years, we can't anticipate what is going to be needed out there as we go forward. And so we're giving you and suggesting to you a series of what we'll call transportation improvement programs, the first of which is mass transit. We have mass transit system here. We do not have and have not done a master plan for the future for mass transit in this county, and it's time to do that. Additionally, there was a significant amount of interest in looking at ferry service and whether ferry service makes sense. We know right now we have a ferry problem, which is getting to Defusky, and we've got to figure out how to make that work because it's not working well right now. Additionally, $50 million for safety projects. Again, these are projects which may pop up anywhere at any time, at intersections or other places along the roads and streets that we need to fix. We can't tell you what those are going to be, but we believe there should be money allocated to that so that the council can make a decision as the funds are there to do jobs that have to be done. The same thing really applies to what we're calling resilience. We are in a mode right now of climate change. Sea level is rising. I don't know if it rained after I got in here, but it was looking like it was going to, and conceivably a lot of rain. And so we have a lot of streets out there, particularly in northern Beaufort County and the very older parts of the community that are very low and which routinely flood. And there are places in entire communities which get basically blocked from getting off islands and others by the roadways covered with water. We've got to start to think about how we deal with that. There's $20 million in there for that. Additionally, dirt road paving. This particularly is applicable in the northern part of the county, in both St. Helena and the other parts of Ladies Island, as well as Sheldon Township. Lots of dirt roads out there. The county, I think, has, and Jared, forget to tell me what a backlog the county has in terms of projects for those dirt roads. There's $50 million there to provide for that. Additionally, a $60 million pot for resurfacing roads and streets across the county, regardless of ownership. Municipal streets, state roads, county roads. Those are, our objective is to keep these streets in good shape that we have and to ensure that we do that and know how to do that and we can pay for that. We've put $50 million in there for pathways and pathway improvements. In the 18 bond referendum, there were a list, I forget of exactly how many, council, over 25, I think council approved 14 to move forward with. There were $10 million there. We don't have enough money to even do the 14 that you approved. And so we recommend for transportation, for pathways, $50 million, looking at the plan that council has approved, prepared by the staff for the Beaufort County Connects Bike and Ped Plan, but also putting a priority on working on those projects which have already been approved by the voters and need to be done. Finally, in this transportation technology, access roads, about $50 million. all the way from improving the behavior of lights, making sure that we're using the maximum technology we can to move traffic through lights. I know many of you have sat at stoplights where there's nobody coming the other way, and you're sitting there saying, come on, I want to go. Well, using the right technology now, we can fix that problem. When there's no traffic there, the lights can change. And there's all kinds of other things associated with that. Access roads, connection roads, other kinds of things. There's $50 million in there for that. And finally, a long-term demand reduction problem. The statute that we're working with defines an allowable expense as green belts. Doesn't define what that is, but we were taking our cue from what Charleston is doing, and that is using funds to attempt to reduce future traffic by effectively trying to buy up properties, reduce densities, buy development rights, etc., to cut down on the traffic impacts on our current streets and roads. There's $60 million in there for that. We also added a series of recommendations. We suggest that you create an advisory committee, generally, I think, configured as the TAC was, to meet quarterly or whatever, to advise you on this, to help you set priorities and to do other things. I think you should make it public and make it a call and say each year, okay, bring forward some projects. We think for the big projects, you ought to issue a revenue bond so that we can get the money in hand and move it. The opportunity to utilize our funds and to match those with funds which are currently are available and coming from the federal government and the state government, I think is an enormous opportunity for us. We can double this money without a problem, I believe. Additionally, mass transit, we've talked about it, but I think the priority on mass transit right now is planning and developing schemes and plans, and then to the extent that there is property that needs to be acquired or other things that you can utilize and get the property purchase that you may need for the future. It was as I said, it was an interesting project for me. As you know, I'm not a transportation person. I'm a water and sewer guy. But a lot of the thinking, I think, is largely the same. And I do want to give credit where credit is due. The most quoted line in this memo has been that we are not behind the 8 ball, we're under the 8 ball. I want to attribute that to Morris Campbell, who took my memo and made some edits to it and put it in there. So that's his language, not mine, but I think it's a very good line. But I want to, on behalf of the Transportation Advisory Committee members, I want to thank Council for this opportunity. And again, I want to say what a great job the members of the committee did, and we were pleased to be asked, and we're pleased to present you this product. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Dean, we always thank you for your hard work. Are there any questions of Dean or of staff relative to this? And again, we're looking at a resolution to accept and approve the work of the committee, but not addressing
So moved,
the
Mr.
date.
Chairman. So moved.
Okay, we have a motion from Brian. Is there a second?
A second.
York seconds. Let me open it up for discussions, questions. Anybody?
If I could, I think the
Yes.
committee did a wonderful job, and I appreciate their hard work. And I can't really quibble, other than maybe some dollar amounts here and there. The priorities that they've set and the path forward is realistic, and the question is whether or not it's doable.
I have one more thing to say, Mr.
Sure.
Chairman, if I might. I think it's important to point out to folks that this sales tax does not apply to food, it does not apply to fuel, and there are other things that it does not apply to. So in terms of how this tax would impact the situation of many of our lower income county members, I think that this is something that we can emphasize and let them understand that this is not going to impact them directly by doing this. So.
Chris?
Thank you. Just a quick question, and thank you to the committee for all the hard work that you did. But the question is, how did you factor in inflation to the amounts that we're looking at in the packet?
We, quite frankly, did not factor in inflation. What we factored in was taking the experience of the 18 referendum, looking at the time that it took to raise the monies that we wanted to raise in that referendum, and then look at the projected growth rate in the county and the projected increase in visitation and tourism. It's hard to project what that inflation would be. One of the beauties is here, and I think this is important, is this council has the authority to, as we go forward, if this passes, to make adjustments in these amounts, so that to the extent we have a major project and it ends up costing more than we thought, funds can be moved around from these pots to accommodate that. And it means things that we had wanted to do, we may not be able to do with this. We may have to go back again. But there's enough flexibility in here, I think, to accommodate what inevitable inflation is going to be. We know it's there, and I mean, we could have said
Don't
500.
forget, receipts go up with inflation at the same rate that the cost will go up. So,
And that's kind of my question. It's basically the rationale is that the value of that penny will increase over time, and that and inflation will basically offset each other.
Right.
All right.
Got my
Very
fingers
good.
crossed.
Thank you.
York? Alice?
No, Mr. Chairman, I think I said everything I wanted to say at the Public Facility Committee as on record, but this is a public meeting, so I just want to thank Dean and this committee for the thorough report and document that you have brought to us, and to a point where I believe personally that it's very simple. It's something that can be sold to the general public and that everybody will understand. Whether they agree with it or not, it's written to a level that everybody will understand what's in it. And so for that, I say thank you.
Yes, I'd like to extend thanks again for all the work. I think the one thing that makes this different than the previous one, we only had it for 4 years, and we saw that we couldn't get those projects achieved in 4 years. It was impossible. I like that this one is 10 years, and I do think we're under the 8 ball too.
Logan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First thing, thank you for all the work you guys did. I hope Penny wasn't too much of a handful. I know she can be a little firecracker. I figured I'd shake you guys up a little bit.
We enjoyed having her.
The opposite of actually Ms. Howard, my biggest issue is the 10-year that I struggle with. And I'll give you the reasons for that why is we came forward with Lost last year. It did not pass. 70-some% of the county voted no. One of the big reasons why I came out against it and voted no is it had no end date, and the rebate only went to homeowners or property owners. And those are my two issues I had with it. I think that's the reason we're behind the 8 ball or under the 8 ball, especially if we try to put this on a 22 referendum, is because we tried to do that this summer instead of starting this committee in the summer a year ago, and we could have had a lot more time to educate the public on what's on here and take time for that. Earlier today in our caucus, we talked about this a little bit, and 4 members, 5 including myself, spoke about we don't know what's going to happen in the future if we wait till 2024. So we sure as heck don't know what's going to happen if in the next 10 years on these projects. I will say I do like that it gives a little bit of flexibility, but that also scares me. It scares me for the reason this gentleman over here said just a little while ago that projects were promised that still aren't done. This is a very, very big list. And I know we have it shortened in here, but if these each had tabs with a down arrow, this would go another 10 or 15 pages for when you put in 170, when you put in Bluffton, when you put in Hilton Head, and every single one of them has this intersection, this sidewalk, and it's just going to go down. I've seen the recommendations for LATS for Bluffton, and I believe alone they were at 57 projects on there. And while we're on LATS with that, I saw that you gave Bluffton the authority to decide how their money gets used. That worries me. That is my biggest issue, and I'll say it because you guys already know. 5B is on LATS. It is on LATS. It's actually their number 2 priority last time I checked, and that's a problem for me. I made it very clear at the beginning of this meeting, or beginning of these negotiations, or starting this committee, which is actually one of our ideas. I would not support anything that gave access to 5B, and this does that. Not directly, but it does give them the ability to decide that, and I'm sure that's why your Bluffton members were not able to agree to give the authority to county council to see how that funds would be used, because they were probably split on which projects they want to do in Bluffton. That's no fault to you. I just know the people in Bluffton, they're very, very split on that. I struggle with the 10 years. Beaufort County changes a lot. At one point, Beaufort County did push 5B and says this is a great idea. And 14 years later, half of Bluffton wants nothing to do with it. And that kind of worries me as well. I would be more inclined to do something along 5 years. Unfortunately, we are under the 8 ball for 2022. I'm sure that we will not get 11 members to agree to lower that. But that's going to be my biggest struggle, selling it to the public. We had trouble before with Lost. 77%, I think it's 77 or 76 voted no. I hope we can, and we have the ability. We've created this committee to give us ideas, and we have the ability to adjust this and negotiate and figure out what's the best route to go. I think the ideas and the things we're doing behind it are spot on. It spreads money throughout the entire county. It gives each town councils the opportunity to voice their opinion, and it makes sure that some projects don't get left behind. But when we overload ourselves with projects, somebody in the end is going to be mad that this sidewalk didn't get done. Well, you promised me when I voted for it that my sidewalk was going to get done. But you were so far down the list it didn't get done. I'll leave those as my comments. I hope we can negotiate the years down. I'm all on board with the projects themselves, though, outside of Bluffton having the authority to decide. And they are the only ones that actually have the authority to decide. And if I was voters, I wouldn't be happy with that either.
Yeah, I'm going.
Oh, Jared's about to set me straight.
Yeah, let Jared deal with this.
I'd just like to provide 2 comments to that. First of all, the 10 years, a little bit of flavor of where that came from. We looked at different models throughout the state, different counties that have adopted sales tax programs. Beaufort County is actually the lowest one on years, with 4 years. There's a lot of models that have 7 or 8 years, 10 years, and even Charleston County has a 25-year. They actually have 2 25 years that have been split up in a half cent, so they have a 35-year horizon. Richland County has a 22-year horizon. So this was something that the stat or the committee went back and forth, and that's where the 10 years came from. So it was the thought process was that currently in a 4-year we have 3 big projects or 2 big projects, and then a lot of pathway projects that equal a big project, and we haven't been successful in delivering those projects. Even though a pathway seems like a small project, it has the same delivery time as a larger project, and we haven't been successful because of the delivery time just so long on the transportation infrastructure project. So the intent with the 10-year was, 1, to meet the middle on the different programs around the state, as well as provide time, because success bequeaths success. So a lot of successful programs, York being the model, is a 7 or 8 year program that gives them enough time to get the projects done, so they can be at a place where they present back in another 7 years for another successful program. So they're on their 4th penny right now. As far as the recommendations and back to the town of Bluffton, these are recommendations by the committee to council. Council can take these committees, they can take, or the recommendations, they can take them as so, they can modify them, they can adjust them. Whether the county council gives town council that authority, that's totally within your rights for consideration. That's just what was presented out of the committee. So with that, just a little bit of background on where those combinations came from.
Thank you. And like I said, I appreciate the work. I really do love what's on there. It's just, there's always little details I think we need to discuss. Thank you guys for your time and volunteer hours.
Mark, and then Gerald, you want to talk to? Mark?
Yes, Mr. Moss, thank you. Whenever you guys are first tasked with this, I was thinking, how in the world and what will you come back with? It was highly impressive. I am very, very impressed with what you did, the long-term thinking. I actually disagree with Mr. Cunningham. I think 10 years is, if anything, it's too short, because we all know what needs to be done. And as you said in your committee, it was unanimous what needs to be done. It was just a matter of fact of where and how we asked for the money. So again, I just want to say at this point, I know we're going to talk about our next step in the next agenda item, but thank you so much. We appreciate it. I think you have made it very, very clear, and more than that, made it very, very simple that everyone can see exactly what needs to be done. So thank you.
Gerald?
Dean, let me start by saying thank you for the work that you and your committee did in defining these projects, bringing them forward, giving us a basis to work from. And you being the chair, I know it wasn't an easy job, so, but you got it all done, and so now you can sit down somewhere, take a break, and just relax for a while. My question is actually for Jared. So, Jared, if you would. As we sit here in council today, we can hear the rain pouring on the top of this building. And so our rural communities is drastically affected in climates like this. We allocated $50 million for dirt road paving. My question to you is, in your best estimate, do you think, or can you give some assurity that this is enough to finish paving the amount of unpaved dirt roads that we currently have in our county?
I think it is. I think it's really close, if not. Like you've asked a similar question before, and the answer was about 37 and a half years at our current fund rate. So
this is going to cut it, right?
This should cut it immensely. The one thing we'd have to juggle with this is the amount of money versus the amount of project our contractors can handle. So this wouldn't be, we get all the remainder roads done in the next 2 years. We would take the full 10 years to implement this. But this definitely, in a connection with the TAG fund program that we use to pave dirt roads, will go a long ways, if not all the ways, to complete the roads that are dirt road that would be in need of paving.
It's in times like this, inclement weather like this, when Eric and our public director's office, Neil Desai, this is when they get all the phone calls and all the headaches. And I know it's troublesome sometimes, but the folks in the rural communities, they have to deal with this situation. And so the sooner we get these roads paved, the less headache it will be for all of us.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Paul, you're the only other one. Do you got anything you want to say?
Well, only just to reiterate what everybody else has said, how much we appreciate what the committee did, what a great job they did, and all the effort they put into it. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Sure. Logan?
Yeah, real quick. I want to follow up on the dirt road allocation. And you said that it will probably do that, and I didn't think about what's being allocated currently, about $2 to $3 million a year. So over 10 years, that's about $80 million if you total it all up. And we have about, what, 80 miles of dirt roads that's unpaved right now?
79, yes, sir.
79, so that would actually do it, Gerald. Yeah. The other thing is that I just want to make a comment. When Jared made his presentation about 6 months ago, he was asking for $1 billion. Dean, you only came up with 700, so that's a 30% discount right there to the taxpayers. Thank you.
I like your positive outlook on that. That's like saying you got equity in your house until you sell it.
I do too.
Quick question, and it's just to educate myself. People come and go in jobs. We come and go on council. People come and go inside the staff building. Who has the ultimate decision of which projects get picked next when the money gets raised?
So that's where the recommendations would come from. The goal would be that if successful, that a committee would go along with this. So it wouldn't be a one and done, whether it's the same members or not, but some type of committee to help oversee. So what was really helpful with the committee was not just the council representations, but the direct representations from the municipalities. And we heard them talking with staff and talking with the members. So having a forum like that where we can say, okay, this is the project list, and how do we put them all? Because it's not as easy as picking this one's my favorite project, let's move it up front, because there's funding opportunities with the infrastructure bill that sometimes it makes sense for this project to fit because there's a direct funding opportunity versus this one. As well as these non-specific, the program projects, the intent as presented in the memorandum is that there would be a prioritized list and ranking system that the committee and council agree upon, and then we basically have a call for projects and filter those projects through that priority list. So that would help prioritize which projects come first versus the other one.
And then those recommendations would come to county council to vote on and allocate those funds for those specific projects.
Yeah, so this would not be a one-time affair. This would be a continual update and process that staff and said committee would come through council for interactive updates and appropriations.
And are you going to sign a 10-year contract to stay here to see this through?
Not yet, I don't, but I want to stay here and see it for sure.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion or questions? Seeing none, is there any objection, which would be to accepting this as a resolution? Provides a path forward, doesn't bind future councils, so we would look for resolutions coming forward in the future relative to prioritizations and committees, but in terms of the good work that's been done. So is there any objection to this resolution? Hearing none, this stands approved without objection. That's item number 20. That now takes us to the old item number 18, which was first reading of an ordinance for the referendum itself. And as we talked about it at Caucus, I think the sense was to not make a decision there, of course, but perhaps with two of our members gone, that it would be useful to actually defer final voting on this as a first reading until our next meeting. So is there a motion to either do that or to do something else relative to this first reading? Pardon me? Postpone. Chris makes a motion to postpone consideration of first reading until our next council meeting.
I'll second the motion.
Alice seconds it. Is there any comments that anybody wants to make? Logan.
Quick comment, I'll keep it brief. At first when we talked about this, I thought it was a good idea to postpone. One of the issues I do have with that is if we are going to try to get this onto a 22 referendum, we're already 2 weeks behind because the committee was getting done. They had to dot the I's, cross the T. We're already behind because we didn't start during the summer. Postponing it actually, isn't our next meeting 3 weeks away? Right? So that's another 3 weeks. I just think we're coming up with less and less time to be able to educate the public if we decide to go through 22. I'm going to vote against the postponement only because I think we could actually vote on this today. And then if we wanted to postpone on the second or third reading when the rest of our council members are here to negotiate and talk more, we most definitely can. But at least that doesn't put us behind the 8 ball later on. We can't make that time back up, but we can decide on the second or third reading to postpone it at that time as well.
Yeah, and from a staff standpoint, we're just concerned that if it's going to not get first reading tonight, then you might want to consider delay. If you are not opposed to giving it first reading tonight, certainly, we're okay with you going for first reading and having the discussion at second reading for whatever you would ultimately decide to do. But if you turn it down tonight, then it's going to be hard to bring it back with enough time. So.
Stu, may I? Yeah, I just thinking about the staff and what a box we're going to put them in if we postpone this at all, because I don't know if it's going to be on the 22 referendum or not, but it might be. And if it is, I think we need to go ahead with first reading, and we have 2 more readings to change anything we want or do anything we want with it. And I don't think we're taking advantage of the fact that 2 of our members are not here tonight. They'll have plenty of opportunity for input on it. So I would personally suggest that we go ahead and vote on it tonight. And when the other 2 members are here, we can discuss it in great detail at our next meeting and either change the date to the 24 referendum, leave it at the 22 referendum, or whatever else we want to do with it, and we'll have those other 2 folks with us.
Yeah, just so council's clear that we have to have the referendum completed and in the hands of voter registration by August 15th. So we still have plenty of time, regardless of what happens tonight, to do what needs to be done. We've got 2 meetings in June. We have 1 meeting scheduled in July. If we delay something again, then we'll have to have a special meeting in July to deal with that particular item, but I just wanted you all to understand the schedule. So it's just a matter of whatever you're comfortable with doing this evening, with whether or not you get first reading or postpone to June 13th. Either way, we're going to be fine at the staff level.
Yeah, and we also have the ability to call a special meeting earlier if we want to. It is correct, we do have 3 meetings, 3 weeks to our next meeting. That does not preclude us from calling a special meeting and talking about it if we want to. Other comments? Mark?
I actually agree with Logan, and again, I've seen this council many times vote on first reading or second reading, knowing that we're going to have a second shot and third shot at this as well. And again, I would, at this point, we all know where we stand, but again, I think it is good we have our missing council persons at the next meeting. And again, there's no reason why it would delay us from voting first reading tonight.
Okay. Other comments?
Chris, would you consider withdrawing your motion and the second?
You can either withdraw or somebody can make a motion to amend. Either one.
I'd rather not. I appreciate that, though, but I'd rather
I
not.
can make a motion to amend?
Okay, so Alice makes a motion to amend.
Yes.
To do what?
To have first reading vote.
Have first reading, okay.
Well, we can just vote to deny the motion to postpone. That's the same effect and doesn't require additional judicial action, sir. Just vote the motion up or down and then proceed on with first reading.
So
That's fine.
okay, you're saying the motion is to deny,
No, to extend.
to extend.
Postpone.
Right, okay.
That was the original motion.
So,
right?
okay, is there a second for Alice's motion? You don't need one.
Just so you know, ignore what I said, okay?
I'll withdraw.
Good.
I withdraw that motion.
Councilmember Hervishon made a motion to postpone.
And I
Councilmember
second
Howard seconded it, and what he's stating is that we should vote on that before we do another one.
Yeah, I think
Right, I understand. Okay, so we have before us a motion to postpone. Okay, is there any further discussion from any member of council? Okay, so we'll do a roll call, because I think it'll be a split vote. Your motion, you go first, Chris? Yes. Alice?
No.
York?
No.
Logan?
No.
Gerald?
No.
No?
No.
No? Okay. Mark?
Mark Lawson, no.
Okay. Brian?
I'm going to vote no.
Okay.
Sorry, Chris.
Paul?
No.
No. Chair will vote.
Stand alone.
Chair will vote no, so that is 8-1.
Still love you, brother.
Yeah.
So what we did.
I'll second Al's motion.
Do we need that?
So we're back now to the original motion, which we still need a motion, I believe.
I will make that motion,
accept
Mr. Chairman,
this
to
is
accept
first
it.
reading.
It's first reading.
Okay, so we have Logan as a motion, Alice as a second, and this would be to vote on first reading of the proposed ordinance for the transportation penny sales tax. Okay, open it up for discussion.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, real quick.
Sure.
In the interest of time, I'm going to vote for this only so I can possibly vote against it at second reading. But let's just move this forward. If we could please get unanimous consent to get us to second reading.
Okay. To that point, does anybody object to approving this at first reading, so we then will move it forward for a detailed discussion at second reading? There you have an objection. Okay, we have an objection. Does anybody else object? Okay, hearing none others, we'll take that as an 8-1 approval of first reading of item number 16. We've been through 17. That takes us to item number 19, which is third reading to allocate the additional money collected in the referendum, the one that just expired, to direct it toward sidewalks and multiple paths because they were more than the referendum that was approved than there was money to do it. I believe that's unanimous, so I'd look for a motion on that.
So moved.
So moved, sir.
Okay, we got Brian and Gerald. Is there any discussion? Does anybody object? Okay, that is approved without objection. That's number 19. Takes us to our last item, which is number 21, which has to do with some right-of-way needs on the Bluffton Parkway. Somebody want to speak to that? Jared?
Sure, this has to do with the installation of the signal on Bluffton Parkway and River Ridge and Hampton Lake there. So in order to facilitate the signal, we did a warrant analysis. The warrant analysis came back that it was required. We're moving forward with a design to expedite this project, and concurrently we're moving forward with this right-of-way to get permission. We're finalizing the acreage and then obviously the appraisal value amount, but this is a very small amount both on the school property and there in front of the front entrance of Hampton Lake. So this is to give the administrator the approval to execute those right-of-way documents.
I'll make the motion.
Any discussion?
Something that's been long overdue, and I'm glad we are getting it done quickly. It's definitely a hazard speeding through there, especially during that school zone when they're crossing over two lanes. So thank you.
Citizen comment, and I appreciate you all being patient. Is there anybody else that would like to speak? We had two that were left over from the first session. I don't know if they're still here or not, but we'll welcome you again.
Good evening once again. As he started talking about these projects, one of the things that was not mentioned is safety throughout Beaufort County. Throughout Beaufort County, we have plenty of cameras going around Beaufort County. However, it's been brought to my attention that they do not record. One of the things that I would love to see on that list of items that was just brought up is that there be some type of funding to increase safety throughout Beaufort County by ensuring that those cameras have the ability to record. That would definitely, when we talk about enhancing Beaufort County overall, that would enhance safety and everything else throughout Beaufort County. So I'm asking the county council to please consider that as one of the things that, as you do your second and third readings, to make sure that that is looked at and possibly added to your list. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak? Having completed all of our business, this meeting now stands adjourned. Thank you.